Good morning. Welcome to Right Side Broadcasting Network. It is Thursday, January 29th, with a lot of news to get to. But first and foremost, our friend from All Family Pharmacy joining us, the co-owner, Michael Kunzler. Always good to see you, sir. Can you share with us about this winter storm, how that's affected transit across America, especially throughout the Southeast, with pharmacy closures across the country? What kinds of problems are you seeing right now with patients and with manufacturers? And specifically, how serious is it for essential medications getting to those who need it?
Yeah, so right now we're seeing tons and tons of delays. I mean, the delays are on our end where they were shipping to a patient, as well as delays coming to us where their wholesalers or the manufacturers are not able to get us the essential medications so that we can ship them out to our patients. Right now, there's a handful of medications that are out of stock just because we're simply waiting on it. Small shipments are arriving day after day, but it's not enough to keep our patient base fully stocked in what they're requesting. So, we're running into these issues. It happens every year in January and February, unfortunately, which is the heart of flu season. So it always happens at this time when most of these flu cases are through the roof.
Oh, I'm sure it's really something. I was just with a bunch of friends and family members getting sick from that flu. And of course, I asked them, where is your Tamiflu? Because when the weather hits or the supply chains issues get bigger, people realize how vulnerable they are in that moment. So this is not so much a luxury being unprepared, but events like this proving that you need these on hand so that when you get sick, you can actually be taken care of in case there's any issue with snow or ice or any other cataclysmic event.
Yeah, absolutely. And, we contact FedEx probably 3 times a day to see what's going on with the shipments, what's going on with the flights. Ultimately, their main location's out of Memphis. Everything flies into Memphis. Everything flies out of Memphis. So if Memphis airports are shut down, FedEx is not shipping. So right now, at the moment, we know is we have over 17 to 2,000 packages delayed. And it's delayed not because of us. It's because FedEx is shipping everything ground. We ship everything 2-day air because we know how essential it is to get people their drugs or their medications as quick as possible. So we do FedEx 2-day, and we can get it from Florida to Washington in 2 days. Now they're shipping it ground because the planes just simply can't take off. And that's an ice problem that's happening in Memphis, Tennessee. This has nothing to do with Boca Raton, Florida. 65 degrees out and sunny. The weather is beautiful down here. This has nothing to do with Florida. It has everything to do with the central hub in Memphis, Tennessee, unfortunately.
One of the many reasons why people are flocking to that free Sunshine State year-round. Now, All Family Pharmacy is not just serving patients directly. They're actually working with manufacturers and doctors specifically across the country to expand that access. Now, how does a nationwide provider network help get these essential medications to everyday Americans, like you said, Michael, in normal circumstances, that 2-day air travel, especially in emergencies? And what are you doing now to keep strengthening that access during this storm?
Yeah, so one of the key things that we have started recently, and this has probably been about 6 months back, is we're linking up with providers around the United States, right? Providers have a list of patients that they work directly with. Most Americans, they trust only their doctor. They want to go to just their physician because their physician can guide them in the right way. Most of these physicians are scared to prescribe some of these essential medications, whether it's ahead of time, being prepared, or it's something like ivermectin or mebendazole and people are using it off label and they're scared to prescribe it because they're scared what the insurance companies are going to do to them. They're scared what Medicare thinks about them or the state regulators, the medical board thinks about them. At All Family Pharmacy, we don't take insurance. We don't deal with insurance. We don't report to the insurance companies. That has nothing to do with us. That's why we only take, cash payment. As we state, we don't take insurance because we cut the red tape. We get rid of them because they're nothing but a nuisance. They just get in the way of everything and they restrict access to Americans. They do it on purpose because that's how they make so much money, and the government funds that. I mean, you can see what Trump's already doing right now with, the infant or the newborn money. There's another proposal he has on the table with HSA and FSA accounts, which we would love. It helps people get access to essential medications when they need them or ahead of time so that they have them on hand for instances like right now. So back to my original point, we're working with your physicians. We can work with your doctors around the country. We can work with nutritionists, functional medicine doctors. We can work with essentially anybody within our network. As long as they're a U.S. regulated physician, they're licensed in their state, and they're licensed to prescribe or not prescribe, we can help them. And that's something that we're trying to work on as well, because we want to expand access to these medications. We can expand our services to just your PCP doctor, your regular physician, or your functional health doctor. Because most patients, they're not going to go online and want to order, and then unless they trust us, from a random company in Boca Raton, Florida, or whether it be one of these other sketchy companies that come from India, they're going to want to listen to their physician. We have doctors, we have, multiple physicians that are licensed and located throughout the United States, have done this since 2020 and have no problem doing it. They're not scared of the regulators because everything they're doing is safe and compliant, and it's within state and federal law. So it's something that, we're exploring the idea and helping other physicians and their practices provide these essential medications. And if people simply want to just come directly to allfamilypharmacy.com, we highly suggest it. They can use your discount code. They can use any of the discount codes that we offer. We are always constantly adding discount codes when we feel it's necessary for people to stock up on medications. I don't know if you know, last week we threw a big discount out there right before the winter storm because we got wind of it. We knew what was coming, and we wanted to give people the opportunity to stock up before things got worse. A ton of people took advantage of it. We got their packages out in time. But now there are those who did wait a little bit, and they're unfortunately delayed on their packages. And that's what happens during these massive storms. You never know when the flu is going to come. You never know when a sinus infection is going to come, laryngitis, any of these bacteria infections. It just always randomly pops up at the worst time. So it's always best to stay prepared, especially in the winter season.
And that link right now, allfamilypharmacy.com/emergency-kits for 20% off using code RSBN20. Now, for families watching this, Michael, who might be worried about the next storm or the next outbreak, I was listening this morning to a measles outbreak on the northern end of South Carolina, something the United States has not seen in a period of time. What are the practical steps that viewers today can take so that they can have those essential medications on hand for the next catastrophe, because God knows what's around the corner?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can go directly on our website, allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. Obviously, we can use the RSBN coupon code RSBN10 or RSBN to save 10% off your order. You could also give us a call. If you don't know what medications to stock up on, you're unfamiliar with the products that we offer or what's best to have on hand, especially in January and February when the winter months get really cold and these storms come, give us a call. We have customer service agents, we have pharmacy technicians, and we have pharmacists on hand to make recommendations that could help you, that could help your family. We have no problem with people calling us all day long asking for recommendations on what they think is necessary. We have over 4 pharmacists today alone ready to go because we have so many packages we want to ship out, and we want to get to those people who need these medications. So if you have questions, feel free to give us a call. You can always speak to one of our pharmacists. You can always speak to one of our physicians. You can speak to our customer service reps. Sometimes I jump on the phone. Sometimes my business partner jumps on the phone. We've been doing this for 6 years. We talk to every doctor that we work with. We're very knowledgeable now. And what is the best medications to be stocked up on in February? Spring break's right around the corner. Here comes March, right? Travel season. People want to go on cruises. People want to go on vacation because their kids are on spring break. So there are some great months coming around. It's time to stock up. Let's get past this winter storm and, get a couple essential medications in your cabinet so you're ready to go.
And you can do that at allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. Michael Kunzler, the co-owner of All Family Pharmacy. Thank you, as always, for joining us on this Thursday. You stay safe down there in sunny Florida.
Thank you.
And as we cover the local from the Trump White House, everything inside and outside the Beltway, we are awaiting President Trump to host yet another cabinet meeting. And it's been so interesting in this dialogue, right, left, and center, of countless different topics in America right now, including Border Czar Tom Homan, who roughly over an hour ago just finished a highly anticipated press conference. The fact that Secretary Bessent recently pointing this out in an interview, that his predecessor not even meeting with President Biden in the same amount of time over the course of the entire tenure of the Otto Penn administration, compared to the amount of meetings Scott Bessent has had one-on-one with the President of the United States, let alone the cabinet meetings, and approximately one each month dating back last year, and now the very first one to go into this 2026. So this should be really a very interesting cabinet meeting, as President Trump had a slew of truth socials going out there regarding 2020. Fulton County, as FBI officials raiding those election facilities, and replays of the claims from the Secretary of State, Brad Raffensperger, now running to be governor of Georgia. And it seems as if there might be not only a conflict of interest on the part of the Secretary of State's office, but the fact that some of the information and truth may have been withheld. We will continue to watch that investigation, as it looks as if Tulsi Gabbard was on the ground as a DNI looking to obtain crucial information regarding 2020. So as that develops, we will be right on top of that here at Right Side Broadcasting Network. But really the story of the day thus far, Border Czar Tom Homan, his findings, his meetings with Governor Tim Walz, also Mayor Jacob Frey of Minneapolis, and in Minnesota, giving a press briefing this morning. If we do have that, Mr. Producer, are we able to run that for the viewers? Excellent. We will send that on over right now. Border Czar Tom Homan from roughly an hour and 15 minutes ago, speaking on developments in Minnesota.
Good morning. Too early, isn't it? Look, I've been given talking points, and I don't like reading speeches, never have. But my chief of staff did put some stuff down here in writing just to make sure I don't miss anything. So I'm going to be reading a little bit, and then we're going to open up for questions. I've been on the ground less than 3 full days. I got in here on Monday. President of the United States called me Monday morning and asked me to deploy here. Got here Monday evening, and I'm staying till the problem's gone. But we've made a lot of progress in the last 3 days. Marcos Charles, he's running ICE operations here. There you go. Rodney Scott, Commissioner of Customs and Border Protection, standing here beside me. Good morning, I'm Tom Homan, the Border Czar for President Trump. I'm here on behalf of the President, along with U.S. Commissioner for U.S. Customs and Border Protection, Rodney Scott, and Marcos Charles, who's leading the enforcement effort here right now. I've been on the ground since Monday to regain law and order in the city beloved by many, and work together to remove threats from the community. During the past administration, we'll all remember, more than 10 million illegal aliens entered this nation. Many were national security threats, public safety threats. We can't remember over 2 million known gotaways. 2 million people who paid more to get away. Why? That should scare the hell out of everybody. President Trump promised American people, including the residents of Minnesota, that he would work to ensure our communities are safe. And with that, this administration is absolutely focused on identifying removal aliens that pose a public safety threat and national security threats. And the numbers prove it. The data proves it. In the past few days, I've met with Governor Walz, Attorney General Ellison, Mayor Frey, numerous police chiefs and sheriffs, and I have more to meet. I'll also be continuing the dialogue with business and religious leaders in partnership with Minnesota, your community leaders. I'll be meeting with them too, because I want to hear what they have to say. In my meetings with folks so far, and most importantly, the governor and the AG, the Mayor Fry, we didn't agree on everything. I didn't expect to agree on anything. I've heard many people want to know why we're talking to people who they don't consider friends in administration. Bottom line is you can't fix problems if you don't have discussions. I didn't come to Minnesota for photo ops or headlines. You haven't seen me. I came here to seek solutions, and that's what we're going to do. And we've come a long way, and we got some good wins for the people of Minnesota, I think, and for the administration and for the safety and security of this city. One thing we did agree on, though, everybody I talked to agreed on, was that community safety is paramount. One thing we all agreed on was U.S. Immigration Customs Enforcement is a legitimate law enforcement agency that has a duty to enforce the laws enacted by Congress and keep this community safe. Like I've said many times for the last several years, even before this administration, jurisdictions that refuse to cooperate with federal immigration authorities are sanctuaries for criminals. Sanctuary cities are sanctuaries for criminals and endangers the residents of the community. To be clear, we did not agree with Minnesota state and local officials that they would be involved in immigration enforcement. I didn't ask them to be immigration officers. I'm asking them to be cops working with the cops to help us take criminal aliens off the street. What we did agree upon is not to release public safety arrests back in the community, and they could be lawfully transferred to ICE. I'll speak more about that. I will highlight that the Minnesota State Prison System under the Department of Corrections have been honoring ICE detainers. And we appreciate that important collaboration, and we're going to expand upon that. That decision has made Minnesota safer, not only for residents of Minnesota, but the men and women in law enforcement. Not just ICE, all law enforcement. Rather than arresting the same public safety threat, significant public safety threat over and over again, they agree to work with us to identify those people and remove them. I'm also pleased to announce I had a very good meeting with Attorney General Ellison, and he has clarified for me that county jails may notify ICE of the release dates of criminal public safety risks so ICE can take custody of them upon their release from the jail. And let me tell you why that's important. I know people are a lot concerned about the manpower has been sent in law enforcement manpower. Look, I've said this many times before. I've said it for the last several years. Give us access to the illegal alien public safety threat and the safety and security of a jail. It's common sense. It's safer for the community, it's safer for the agent, and it's safer for the alien. Because anything can happen on a street arrest. It just makes common sense. And for the people that argue, well, we're a welcoming community because we want victims and witnesses of crime that are here illegally to feel safe to come to police without fear they're working with ICE, we're not going to talk to the victim and witness of crime. There's no problem there. They should feel safe to come to police and ask for help. All we want is to talk to the person that local and state law enforcement authorities locked in a jail cell. They chose to lock this person up. That's who we want to talk to, the public safety threat. So the argument is that protects victim witnesses of crime. It's a bunch of crap. Victims and witnesses of crime don't want the bad guy back in their neighborhood either. So great progress with the Attorney General and local sheriffs. And one thing, when we have these agreements, it takes less law enforcement agents to do the job. One agent can arrest one bad guy in the safety and security of a jail where he's behind the wire. We know we don't have weapons. But when you normally release that public safety threat, illegal alien back in the community, we have a job to do. We're going to arrest him. So we're going to find him. And what happens is now we got to arrest somebody on his turf. We have access to who knows what weapons. Now we got to send the whole team out. Cover the back door, cover the front door, officer safety reasons. Then because of the hateful rhetoric and the attacks on ICE officers, now we got to send a security team behind the arrest team. So what could have been done with one person in a safety and security jail, now we got 15, 16 people out there doing it. I know that causes stress in the community. So if we get these agreements in place, that means less agents on the street. More agents in the jail means less agents in the street. This is common sense cooperation that allows us to draw down on the number of people we have here. Yes, I said it. Draw down the number of people here. Because we have the efficiency and safety of the jails and the prison. Matter of fact, I have staff from CBP and from ICE working on a draw-down plan. What does that look like based on the cooperation? What does that look like based on how many targets we have left to find? In my meetings with Governor Walz, A.G. Ellison, and Mayor Fry, as well as state and local law enforcement, again, I appreciate they all acknowledge that we do have federal immigration laws in this country that have been passed by Congress, and that ICE is in fact a legitimate law enforcement agency charged with enforcing those laws. We're not making this up, folks. ICE is enforcing laws enacted by Congress. They're a federal statute. That said, I'm not here because the federal government has carried this mission out perfectly. First thing I said to senior staff when I walked in here is what I told you earlier. I didn't come here looking for photo ops or headlines. I come here looking for solutions. I do not want to hear that everything's been done here has been perfect. Nothing's ever perfect. Anything can be improved on. And what we've been working on is making this operation safer, more efficient, by the book. The mission is going to improve because of the changes we're making internally. No agency or organization is perfect. And President Trump and I, along with others in the administration, have recognized that certain improvements could and should be made. That's exactly what I'm doing here. As such, in meetings I've had with federal law enforcement managers, including ICE and CBP and other federal partners, as well as state and local officials, I have conveyed the President's expectations with regard to federal immigration enforcement efforts. We will conduct targeted enforcement operations. Targeted. What we've done for decades. When we hit the streets, we know exactly who we're looking for. Good idea where we may find them. You have a criminal history. You have their immigration history. A lot of information about this person that we get from numerous databases out there. Targeted, strategic enforcement operations. That's traditionally been the case, and that's where we're going. That's what we're going to continue to do and improve upon that. With a prioritization on public safety threats. I want to be clear. I don't read a lot of social media. I don't read a lot of media. I don't believe half what I see. We are not surrendering the President's mission on immigration enforcement. Let's make that clear. Prioritization of criminal aliens doesn't mean that we forget about everybody else. That's just simply ridiculous. But when you have a criminal standing here and a non-criminal standing there, that criminal always should be targeted first because he's a significant concern to the safety and security of the community. By and large, for decades, ICE and CBP have carried out their duties with integrity, professionalism, and compassion. That remains the expectation under President Trump, and we will I will hold our agents and officers to that standard. I'm almost done, then Tom can be Tom. As far as the agitators, that said, I want to reiterate and make very clear. I want to make it clear. ICE and CBP officers are performing their duties in a challenging environment under tremendous circumstances. But they're trying to do it with professionalism. If they don't, they'll be dealt with. Like any other federal agency, we have standards of conduct. They are sworn law enforcement officers working tirelessly to enforce our country's border security and immigration laws, protecting the interests of our country and preventing dangerous people from walking the streets of this nation when they're not supposed to be here to begin with. Men and women of ICE, I was a Border Patrol agent. I was an ICE agent. I was the first ICE director that came up through the ranks. I spent over 40 years doing this. These men and women that carry that badge and gun are American patriots. They put themselves on the line for this nation every day. But I want you to remember, they don't hang their badge, they don't hang their heart on a hook every day they come to work. They're mothers and fathers too. They're sons and daughters too. And if they've seen a fraction of the tragedies I've seen in my career, they take a lot of damage home to every day. The things they've seen, especially on the border with Border Patrol agents. People drowning in the river. Women being raped by criminal cartels. Giving CPR to a baby that was thrown in the river by the cartels because Border Patrol came too close. So let's throw the baby in the river. That way the Border Patrol was concentrated on that so I can get away. These men and women see some terrible things. But I want you to remember, they're mothers and fathers too. Many of them are members of this community. God bless every one of them. The hostile rhetoric and dangerous threats and hate must stop. And we all agreed to that. All everybody met here today to tell you, we got to stop the rhetoric, the hateful rhetoric that has caused an increase in assaults. That has caused, because of that, have to send security teams out with arrest teams, which surge the city with additional resources because of the rhetoric, because of the threats, because of the assaults. Again, with the agreements we've achieved and following through the agreements, with the rhetoric dropping down, that allows us to pull more agents out once we feel the environment's safer. I begged for the last 2 months on TV for the rhetoric to stop. I said in March, if the rhetoric didn't stop, there's going to be bloodshed. And there has been. I wish I wasn't right. I don't want to see anybody die. Not officers, not members of the community, and not the targets of our operations. For the people out there that don't like what ICE is doing, if you want certain laws reformed, then take it up with Congress. Again, ICE is making this up. They're enforcing laws enacted by Congress and signed by the President. The same laws have been on the books for the last 6 presidents I worked for. I started with President Reagan and ending with President Trump. Every administration, we enforce the same laws. If you don't like what ICE is doing, instead of protesting this building, go protest Congress. Tell me you want changes. You have your First Amendment rights, I support that. You have the right to protest. I'm just asking you to keep it peaceful. But threatening law enforcement officers, engaging in impeding and obstruction and assault is never okay. And there will be zero tolerance. You interfere, impede, assault ICE officers, you will be arrested. Like I said a bit earlier in my meetings with Governor Walton Ellison and Frey, as well as state and local law enforcement, I appreciate they acknowledge this, that public safety should be paramount. The chiefs I've talked to committed to responding to 911 calls when protesters turn violent, agents are in a dangerous situation, and there's assaults. they have committed to upholding public safety and responding to the needs, not to enforce immigration law, but to keep the peace. With that, I call upon those officials to stand shoulder to shoulder with us to tone down the dangerous rhetoric and condemn all unlawful actions against law enforcement in the community. There are many ways your voice can be heard, express your feelings, and affect change in the country without crossing that line. Political and other disagreements in this realm should not be at the expense of public safety or the safety of our federal law enforcement officers. In closing, I want to thank the state and local officials here in Minnesota that I met with and the many I'm going to meet with. We've had meaningful dialogue. And look, again, we didn't agree on everything, but we agreed on the things I just talked about. There's much more we can do. And I'm going to continue those dialogues. I got many more community leaders to talk to. I got many more sheriffs to meet. President Trump wants this fixed, and I'm going to fix it with your help. I want to thank President Trump for his unwavering commitment to public safety and prosperity of every American. Under the President's leadership, we have the most secure border in the history of this nation, which means less women are being raped, less children are dying crossing that border, less fentanyl is getting in this country to kill Americans, less known suspected terrorists are crossing that country, and we don't have 2 million unknown gotaways. We don't know who the hell they are. A secure border, we have stronger national security. A secure border saves lives. When 96% less people come in, how many women aren't being sucked to have been members of the cartel? How many people aren't dying making that journey? How many Americans aren't dying of fentanyl overdoses? How many women and children aren't being sex trafficked in this nation? The data proves it. Anybody can find that data. So God bless this great nation. God bless Minnesota. We can do better. And I think your local and state leaders meeting with me, we made some significant gains, significant coordination and cooperation, and you're going to see some massive changes occurring here in this city. Thank you.
Can you clarify what the rules of engagement are? None, right here. Thank you so much. Mr. Holman, Giovanni Dell'Orto with the Associated Press. Based on how you have described these changes in the mission, can you be more specific about the objectives of Operation Metro Surge? If what you have described changes the parameters for interior enforcement only in Minnesota or also in Maine and other places? And finally, when will you consider that those objectives will be achieved and this operation will end? Or is it in terms of agents on the ground, in terms of who you're targeting for arrests?
The withdrawal of law enforcement resources here is dependent upon cooperation. Like I said, one agent arresting one bad guy in the jail means less agents on the street. We have some agreements. We got more to talk about how we're going to implement those agreements. But as we see that cooperation happen, then the redeployment will happen. Look, target enforcement operations should happen across the nation. That's what we've done for decades. And with target enforcement operations, I've done many of them. It just makes it safer for everybody. When we know exactly what we're looking for, what is his criminal history, what is his immigration history, where's he live, is he in an apartment complex versus a house, has he got a known record for having weapons, it's safer for everybody. Then we know what type of resources we need to go. And it just makes this operation cleaner, more efficient, and it's proven less violence when we know exactly what we're getting into and we can take the necessary precautions to keep everybody safe. Some of the operations that I've been involved in, we know there's children in the house based on surveillance. So we know you got to be a little bit different when you go in that house because there's going to be children present. So target enforcement operations, the way we've always done it, I think we got to wait for a little bit. And we want to make sure we do target enforcement operations. And look, I will say it again, we are not surrendering our mission at all. We're just doing it smarter.
Shimon Prokopez from CNN. Mr. Holman, how did we get here in terms of you had Greg Bovino, who was the face of this immigration operation, the mission, as you say, to having border patrol agents in the interior of this country stopping U.S. citizens, asking them for ID, creating this fear in places like Chicago and now here. And then finally, it took really the death of Alex Petty for us to get here. How did that happen? Who made the decisions to allow this kind of operation to proceed in this way and to create such fear?
Well, like the Border Patrol, in the last 4 years under Joe Biden, we had an open border where 10, 12,000 people a day are coming across the border. Border Patrol got overwhelmed, which means we sent thousands of ICE agents down there to help deal with that humanitarian crisis, to help secure the border. Now we have millions of people released in this nation, many unvetted. Now we got to find them. Before the big, beautiful bill, we had a total just under 5,000 deportation officers to look for millions of people, many in public safety threats. So yes, we needed Border Patrol to come and help on our mission now. And reason for the massive deployment is because of the threats, because of the violence. Our officers need to be protected. If I'm on an operation, an arrest team, I'm going to a house, I got to be busy with that guy, the dangerous guy, and I can't keep looking over my shoulder at what's happening outside the house. So we brought extra resources in to provide that security. And as I said, as we drill down on these great agreements we got and this great understanding we have means less. So we can draw down those resources. When the violence decreases, we can draw down those resources. But based on the discussions I've had with the governor and the AG, we can start drawing down those resources as far as those looking for public safety threats being released, and do it in the jail with much less people. So the drawdown is going to happen based on these agreements. But the drawdown can happen even more if the hateful rhetoric and the impediment and interference will stop. So Border Patrol, I was a Border Patrol agent. These men and women are patriots. God bless them. They're here to help us. And the drawdown will come soon, depending on when this actually, I see this in play. But the agreements to have alone is going to cause a significant drawdown. So you're going to see a drawdown.
Just on a personal, you've been doing this for 40 years. Just a follow-up.
Ben, go ahead.
First off, Ben Burkbaum, Real America's Voice News. On behalf of the American people, I just want to say thank you to you and to all of the agents that are putting their lives on the line to go after the people that were allowed in the last administration. We watched that happen in the media, the honest media, covered up by many of the media that are behind me. We want to say thank you, and to all the men and women that are out there. Can you talk to us about what's being done with the leadership on these signal chats, on these WhatsApp chats that are organizing the attacks against you, the obstruction against you? Are we going to be arresting those individuals as well? And to the folks out there in America that voted for this, that want mass deportations because they saw a mass invasion under Joe Biden, what would you say to them? How are we going to get to that point?
Well, first of all, about the organization and the funding of the attacks on ICE. I'm not going to answer a lot about that because I'm not going to show our hand, but they'll be held accountable. Justice is coming. Again, we got to all remember why the questions from CNN, why are we here? What started this? 4 years of an open border, where millions of people are in this country unvetted. Remember, let's not forget, for 4 years we were told the border is secure. 4 years we were told the border is secure, and we all knew it wasn't. And I want this to be a positive thing we're doing here today. I also want to remember the politicians are continually attacking us. Where were they the last 4 years when the number of women and children sex trafficking went all-time high? Where were they when 250,000 Americans died from fentanyl coming across the border? Where were they when women and children are dying making that journey? Where were they where over 4,000 aliens making that journey died, historic record? Where were they? Not a word. Now we're just trying to respond to what happened the last 4 years and keeping this country safe. And we're arresting a lot of public safety threats, take them off the streets, which make this country safer. President Trump promised to make this country safe again, and that's what we're doing. But my 2.5 days up here, we made a lot of progress. I think everybody agrees on the criminal and public safety threats. They agree it's much safer and easier to arrest an alien in a facility than send a whole team out in the field that's going to draw anger, because now we got to send a bunch of people to do something that could have been done by 1 or 2 people. And I've said this for years. I have no ill will to anybody in Minnesota. All the people I talk to, we're never going to agree on everything. We have different philosophies and different opinions on immigration, but we all agree this is a way to go to reduce safety, reduce crime, not reduce safety, reduce crime and increase safety for our operations. More people in the jail means less people on the street. It's simple math.
Right here, sir. Lana Zach, CBS News. Everybody I've spoken with agrees that if somebody has a violent criminal history and is a fugitive, they don't want them as their neighbor. But when you're talking about a targeted operation, and are you talking about targeting people whose crime is coming to this country, or is it a more specific definition now?
All operations will be targeted, but the prioritization are going to be criminal aliens, public safety threats, and national security threats. I've met with Marcos and his staff. We got a lot of them. We got a lot of them to keep us busy. So that would be our focus.
So that is enough that's what, there is not going to be a focus on people who have no other crimes except for their status.
If you're in the country illegally, you're never off the table. But prioritization doesn't mean you forget about everybody else. Let me say this. If the message we send is you can enter this country illegally, it's a crime, don't worry about it. You can have your due process, show up in court, not show up in court, get ordered removed, don't worry about it. Unless you commit a serious crime, you're good to go. If that's the message we send to the world, you're never going to fix this problem. The most vulnerable people in the world will make that dangerous journey like they did under the Joe Biden administration. Over 4,000 aliens died making that journey. And again, a significant increase in sex trafficking. Because when they did that and opened those borders up saying, we're not going to detain you, we're going to give you free health care, we're going to fly you to the city of your choice, put you in a free hotel room, give you 3 meals a day, and give you work authorization, we're just going to bring you in. And when they did that, they sent a message to the whole world, you can come and do this. And what happened? They overwhelmed the men and women of the Border Patrol, where many days 70% of agents were pulled off that line. 70%. You don't think the criminal cars had a field day with that? They created gaps for the cartels do their activity. And that's why you've seen the rise in fentanyl overdose. That's why you saw the rise in sex trafficking. The 2 million plus known gotaways, why did they pay more to get away? Why didn't they pay less, turn yourself in, get released within 24 hours? You get a free airline ticket to the city of your choice. We're going to give you a free hotel room, and we'll give you free food and free medical care. And you're going to get work authorization in 6 months. Why did 2 million people choose to pay more not to take advantage of that giveaway program? They didn't want to be vetted. They didn't want to be fingerprinted. That scares the hell out of me. And it does still. The Trump administration with ICE and Secretary Noem and Marco Rubio and the intelligence community, Tulsi Gabbard, we're all working together to try to identify who these people are. And we've already found many of them. But it's hard work to do. But there are national security threats walking this nation because of the last administration. And they are one of our main priorities, too.
Thank you. Can you please be specific about how many ICE and how many Border Patrol agents are currently operating in the state?
I think we're near 3,000. There's been some rotations. Another thing I witnessed when I came here, I'll share this with you. I met with a lot of people, a lot of the agents. They've been in theater. Some of these people have been in theater for 8 months. So there's going to be rotations of personnel. Hopefully less now that we have some agreements. Maybe we can make it more efficient and safe. But they've been in theater a long time, and so there's rotations happen all the time to get people out here and go home, get some rest, and see their families. Day after day, can't eat in restaurants. Day after day, having people spit on you and blow whistles at you. Day after day, having all these threats at you. Day after day, having people trying to interfere with you. Day after day, they're human. So, we've got to rotate these people, and we've already rotated some. But my main focus now is draw down based upon the great conversations I've had with your state and local leaders, again, I'm not a fool. I'm not walking away without seeing this put in place. But I take the word of the people I met with. I think they're honest, and I think they're good brokers, that they want public safety protected, and they also want what's happening in the city to go away. And that's my goal.
Last question in the back.
Mueller Newsmax. The new video of Alex Preddy is now circulating. Your reaction to that, and do you think law enforcement could have played a role if, like, let's say Minneapolis police were able to respond to that? Have those top law enforcement officials said they'll help or do anything to help these agents who are out here?
I'm not going to comment on any of these shootings. I said from day one, I said on any of these shootings, as a career law enforcement officer, we'll let the investigation roll out, let the investigation play out, and let it go where it goes. I'm not going to come out and make any comments that I think is right, wrong. Do I have an opinion? Yeah, my personal opinion, but I'm not going to share that with you. I'm going to tell you, let the investigation play out and see where it goes. But again, the president, one of the words he said to me when I came up here, he said he didn't want to see anybody die. The less interference, the less rhetoric, the less, I have buried Border Patrol agents and I buried ICE agents throughout my career, and the saddest thing I've ever done is hand a folded flag to a wife or a child. I don't want to see anybody die, even the people we're looking for. I don't want to see anybody die. And despite what people think of Tom Homan, I say a prayer every night that everybody goes home safe. This isn't good. But I think my conversations the last 2.5 days are leading us to a safer community, letting ICE officers operate in the safety and security of a jail more than on the street. I think anybody here with common sense would say it's safer to arrest a public safety threat in the safety and security of a jail. And let me tell you, what is that going to result in? Less collateral arrests. When we go find that bad guy, when we find that bad guy, many times it's with others. Well, guess what? They're in the country illegally. We're going to force immigration law. They're coming too. You want less collateral arrest? Let's in the jail. But we're going to force immigration law. For the people to say we're here to surrender our authority and the mission of enforcing immigration law, you are wrong. We're going to do target enforcement operations, and we're going to prioritize the public safety threats and national security threats. That is what we're here to do.
Sir, no more questions. Go ahead. No more questions, guys. Thank you.
It's an American patriot right there, the border czar Tom Homan, who won a presidential citation and award under Barack Hussein Obama back in 2015, working for 6 presidents since President Ronald Reagan. Over 40 plus years of experience on the ground as an ICE agent himself, coming up the ranks, leading that glorious department. And the things he's seen, most Americans do not have to go home with at night. That's the cold, hard truth of it. And a glorious press conference laying out the facts and telling the truth about serving the American people and this administration, as they are not backing off. They are doubling down to protect the American people and enforcing Title VIII. As we await for President Trump to host a cabinet meeting, we thank our sponsors here at Right Side Broadcasting Network. The start of a new year brings so much hope and opportunity, but yet again, not only an amazing news cycle, so much happening in these 29 days to start the year, but this terrible storm we saw and flu going up through the roof. That's why allfamilypharmacy.com/emergency-kits, your go-to with code RSBN20, RSBN20. I happen to have one of those kits right here as we spoke to Michael Kunzler, the great co-owner, right at the top of the hour about emergency medical kits, travel kits, flu kits, how essential they are to have right now, given the fact that you might have gotten snowed in or iced in, and then you did not have those essential medications on hand. They have over 300 plus essentials for you at All Family Pharmacy. Scan that QR code now. They are beating out the traditional pharmacies that sometimes simply do not prescribe these FDA-approved medications that have been on the shelves for over a half century. They get you these essential medications to obtain through a U.S. licensed doctor on the other end. And you heard Michael at the beginning of the broadcast. Feel free to reach out and call them through allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN to find the number there. And if you have any questions about your health, your family's health, and your medical future, it's all right there. When you're tired of insurance companies and the troubles that they give you, it's no red tape, it's no bureaucracy. It's simply having a pharmaceutical note ready to go. And within a couple of days, you heard from Michael, they ship out of Memphis, Tennessee. It's UPS, 2-day shipping. Right now it's ground because of what took place with the storms, but they will get that to your door rather quickly at allfamilypharmacy.com/emergency-kits. Also, calci.com/RSBN with questions like the Fed decisions. What will happen with too late Jerome? We know what he does when it comes to harboring the Federal Reserve, and we're looking forward to his retirement. But what about the Super Bowl coming up February 8th? Who's your team? Is it Sam Darnold and the Seattle Seahawks, or that Drake May, who just a decade ago, sitting there in the stands as a young 13-year-old boy with his dad watching his favorite team, the Carolina Panthers, in Super Bowl 50 out there in San Francisco, California? Fast forward 10 years, he is the star of the New England Patriots, leading them back to glory potentially on Sunday, February 8th. Who's your pick? Make that trade at calci.com/RSBN. It is politics. It is also music, sports, culture, and more. So much excitement surrounding that at calci.com/RSBN. We are awaiting President Trump to have a cabinet meeting just moments from now. In the meantime, we can go to an interview I had recently with Nick Pulse. He is a lieutenant governor candidate in the great Badger state of Wisconsin. Very good timing on this because his state facing these issues of insurrection, of chaos, dating back to Scott Walker's administration. Do you remember in 2011 when all that happened in Madison, Wisconsin? He had some thoughts on it and what's happening in neighboring Minneapolis, Minnesota, way up there in the Dairyland. Welcome to Right Side Broadcasting Network. It's Nick Pulse. He is a candidate for lieutenant governor in Wisconsin. Nick, I love your website. It says when you were in the military, you had this saying, you cannot delegate responsibility, but you can delegate accountability. What do you mean by that?
Sure. So at the end of the day, the individuals are in charge. Whether in your leadership position, you're accountable for everything that happens for the folks that work for you. If you do a good job of training, you can teach them and mentor them so that you're delegating a lot of a responsibility that would normally fall on you to the folks that you're training. At the end of the day, though, their actions are accountable to the leader.
And you know some about this because of your background in business and also having served in the military. President Trump really showcasing that art of the deal with those so-called leaders next door to you in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And it seems like it's common sense. Let's build and defend Title VIII, regardless of everything that's happened over the course of the last several days. For example, President Trump asking Governor Walz and Mayor Fry to turn over all criminal illegal aliens, in fact, demanding it because, again, Title VIII enforcement for immediate deportation of the most violent criminals. Number two, you have state and law enforcement agreeing to turn over all of these illegal aliens, in turn allowing those police officers to actually do their jobs instead of fearing either being fired or being prosecuted themselves in liberal jurisdictions throughout the Midwest, and local police assisting those federal law enforcement as Title VIII calls for, among other items. You've dealt with this. How would you go about taking care of this problem in your neck of the woods?
Well, to begin with, we want to keep it out. So part of the 2026 election is making sure that this state doesn't turn into the sanctuary type state that Minnesota has become. And so that starts with getting a Republican governor elected, a lieutenant governor elected, and an attorney general, as well as holding the state, the Senate and the Assembly, because we already have candidates here on the left that are running that want to not work with ICE. They're calling for that during their campaign. And we're seeing the result of that in Minnesota, which is really ground zero for this counter ICE, this somewhat of an insurgency type atmosphere where they're trying to prevent and disrupt ICE from doing the job, which, like you mentioned, within the law.
And it's my understanding you worked directly on counterinsurgency missions while you were in the Army serving our great country. Can you dive into what took place over the weekend, how you would handle that if you were in the second in command in Wisconsin, and how it should be done better in Minneapolis? Is there any blame towards law enforcement for what took place in this very sad and tragic death, or is it something of not adhering to lawful commands coming from those ICE and Border Patrol agents?
Sure. That our federal law enforcement, our local law enforcement are put in really dangerous situations when they're going out and they're trying to enforce these actions, removing illegals from the country. Like you mentioned, they're starting with the ones that are the most violent. And that's really what President Trump was elected on. That was the one big issue that seemed to unite America, is that we were overrun by illegals. We had a lot of violent illegal immigrants in this country committing crimes against Americans. And so we need to remove them. And we really don't have any idea how many there are here. So when you put law enforcement in that position, I don't blame them for their actions. They're making split the second decisions. It's always easy to look at the camera, sit back, and armchair quarterback their actions. It's very difficult when you're on the front end there, when you're dealing with those life or death split second situations to react. So it seems like they're doing the best that they can. What's missing, though, is that local law enforcement help, at least over the weekend. It seems like it's changed after that tragedy, after President Trump and Governor Walz spoke. That was a missing piece to help ICE and the other federal law enforcement agents to do their job.
Well, President Trump talking about that, too, to his staff. It's almost like talking to a completely different person compared to what you see on TV, calling ICE agents Gestapo, this on the part of Governor Walz, and also really making some erroneous claims like this is anything compared to the Diary of Anne Frank, and this week celebrating not celebrating, but really mourning the loss of 6 million Jews overseas during the Holocaust, a terrible time in anti-Semitism. And how dare the governor next door to you make statements like that, to compare this to the Diary of Anne Frank, when she was literally not breaking any laws, rather facing extermination, rather than you have these individuals who are actually they are legal and non-law abiding individuals, aliens in this country. I think it's an extraordinary and sad comparison. Now, Nick, you've probably saw what took place back when Governor Scott Walker was in office. I remember that there were arguably insurrections happening in Madison, Wisconsin, but no calls from mainstream media back then, nor the far left, about all of the violent rhetoric. In fact, not to disgust our viewers, but a severed pig's head or two going into Scott Walker's parents' home through, I believe it was their back door, where the dog would go in and out. I mean, it was a disgusting display of anarchy and rebellion against a really sound governor. And I think you're used to that in the state capital of Madison.
Unfortunately, that really is a lot of parallels to the start of that in 2010, when there was Occupy of the Madison Capitol here. Is that first movement of trying to bully, of trying to intimidate. You know, you mentioned some of the violent tactics, and it was spreading across the state. And then we also saw some of the rhetoric getting dialed up in Kenosha in 2020, where our Governor Evers at the time made some inflammatory remarks, as well as some of the other candidates that are running for governor now. And we saw some of that with partial parts of Kenosha burning. And then more recently, governor here has also stood and made a statement that I stand with Governor Walz in Minnesota. And so one of the things we have to do, you have to dial back the rhetoric. You mentioned that disgusting comparison to Anne Frank and what she went through is a part of this is dialing back the rhetoric and recognizing that we need to be able to talk. We need to be able to understand when we're enforcing laws. And the last part I'll say is there's all kinds of ICE operations throughout the country right now. We don't see the same type of violent reaction and the insurgency-like tactics that we see in Minneapolis right now. And so the question we should be asking is, why is that? Why is it just happening in Minnesota as opposed to all the other places where law enforcement's working well together? We're not seeing governors incite this mob mentality.
Especially with 25% of operations from the federal government in the Lone Star State of Texas. And of course, we saw the cooperation in a blue city of Memphis, Tennessee, with a Republican government in place to assist there and cutting some numbers by at least half. And that was per capita one of the most violent, if not most violent, cities in America as of date. Because of your experience and where you're running to represent the good people of Wisconsin, how would you compare this to Kenosha back in 2020, Kyle Rittenhouse, all of those situations, to not only Minneapolis during that time of the COVID BLM insurrections and violent protests for the most part, some peaceful, mostly violent, compared to present day?
So there are some rumors or some news reports that the folks in Minneapolis right now are trying to stir some problems up in this state, right? So Milwaukee, Green Bay, and a few other states. We haven't seen the level of Minneapolis yet, but to compare it to Kenosha, I think there was a much more robust rhetoric. There was a much more aggressive posture, and it kind of got out of control. It seems like now in Minneapolis, with the tragedy that happened over the weekend, there seems to be a focus on the local law enforcement being allowed to operate, because it appeared that whether it was the mayor or was coming from the governor, is they were telling local law enforcement to stand down or state law enforcement from not getting involved. And it was allowing things starting to ramp up. So we're starting to see some parallels. It seems like they're starting to get it back in place now. And I pray that we don't see anything like that in Wisconsin here as we get closer to the election.
And as we get closer to that August 11th date, your primary up in Wisconsin, so many days away, but in politics, a week can feel like years, and days and months and weeks. Something can change rather quickly in between now and the summertime. Where can people find you, and what do you hope to do as the next lieutenant governor of the Badger State?
Sure. So I view this role as one of an advocate, having a voice for the people. And I see a stark contrast in 2026 between the collectivists, the socialists on one side, and those of us that believe in freedom. And I see my role as being crisscrossing the state, preaching freedom, listening, and then being able to offer advice to the governor and be the person that has the power to convene, right? In that second highest constitutionally elected office in the state, we can bring people together. We can bring the folks that are in, say, energy industry and the folks that are struggling with mandates from some of the laws that Governor Doyle signed. And how do we bring them together? How do we solve that problem? How do we solve our high healthcare costs? How do we solve our high property tax costs? And so that's what I see my role is. Now, as far as my website, it's nicholaspulse.com. We're also on X, Nick Pulse, WI, and then Facebook, Nick Pulse for Lieutenant Governor.
Well, we look forward to your race as we cover the midterms 2026 here at the Rally Network and the Go-To Live Network here at Right Side Broadcasting Network. And before we let you go, Nick, is there something that is highlighted by the president's domestic agenda, especially throughout the Midwest, as he kicked off this week not too far from you in the Hawkeye state of Iowa, really dealing with getting benefit and relief to farmers and protecting them from the Chinese Communist Party and outside influence, but also to make things not only affordable again, but to sell good American domestic product like you have there in the Dairyland?
Yes. So the affordability is the number one issue that I hear consistently as I crisscross the state. And President Trump is laser focused on that. Our farmers, our current governor was targeting some of our farmers with some high increases and some large fees. And that's the last thing we should be doing. We should be giving our farmers the opportunity to grow, to get rid of some of these regulations and really prosper here in the state. We got a fantastic manufacturing base, and we really have to unleash it after 8 years of regulation and high taxes.
Nick Pulse from the Badger State of Wisconsin, running for Lieutenant Governor. Thank you for joining us at Right Side Broadcasting Network, and we look forward to talking again very soon.
Bobby, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
The start of the new year brings so many opportunities, but also that pesky flu. So I hope you have Tamiflu on you. But a great way to get access to all that, All Family Pharmacy at allfamilypharmacy.com/emergency-kits. And I have one right here. This one, the flu kits. You can also travel kits and emergency medical kits right there for you. A sinus infection kit, if that bothers you this time of year. Spring a few weeks away, which brings us hope. But down south, all those springtime smells and sights can really get people's sinuses going. So make sure you have it all on hand, stocked up in your medicine cabinet. All Family Pharmacy changing the ball game completely on this with code RSBN20. 20% off right now. Scan that QR code there. They are making it easier for patients to have more choice and access. They believe in most favored nation status, the right to try, and off-label generics that have been FDA approved for over a half century. But what we saw recently is that the traditional pharmacy model, sometimes they simply do not prescribe these life-saving medications for you and yours, and that's simply wrong. And All Family Pharmacy wants to do something about it by not diving into the red tape. They don't buy up and cozy in with the pharmaceutical companies. You don't even need a prescription to order, just simply the actual insurance, but a prescription-based order for a U.S. licensed doctor to review all of these medications and send it right to your door in a timely manner. allfamilypharmacy.com/emergency-kits. That's code RSBN20. Again, no insurance needed, no red tape, no bureaucracy, just a pharmaceutical note. The U.S. licensed doctor on the other end reviews, prescribes, and sends this all out to your door. allfamilypharmacy.com/emergency-kits. Code RSBN20. Scan that QR code now and look at those great options to have, because look at the storm that just took place. You don't want to catch yourself stuck or out on the road without these life-saving medications. Also, thank you to angelpaste.com, the miracle cream, the OG. I use this vitamin B cream every single day to keep my skin nice and healthy. There's also the orange option, vitamin C infused. Both are non-GMO and no chemicals. None of that nonsense out there. And it's always good to have that extra bolst of vitamin C so that you can have collagen protection, and because there's so much cold and flu happening right now. In addition, I'm a big fan of the natural facial spray. And with Valentine's Day coming up in roughly 2 weeks, a great gift for your significant other. 4 guys, 4 gals, great options, many of them over at angelpaste.com. They're Christian owned, they hire veterans, and they're based in Spring, Texas, right off of the Gulf of America. Experience the miracle today. That is angelpaste.com. We are awaiting President Trump to host a cabinet meeting with his illustrious team, and perhaps lots to get to. So buckle up and stay tuned for what's sure to be a very informative cabinet meeting. And they've already met more times together as a cabinet and individually, the secretaries, with the President of the United States, 2 or 3 times, 4 times more than that of the prior administration. The great legendary Bill O'Reilly and many news sources now stating that there is likely a tie to the leftist Neville Roy Singham, who is allegedly staying in Beijing, China right now. He is a pro-communist agitator responsible for perhaps funding many of the NGOs and the activities that you're seeing on the ground in Minneapolis, Minnesota. I've said this for a long time, my own personal opinion, that this is somewhat of a George Floyd 2.0 and a manufactured crisis that we're seeing as the days develop in all of this. And with video of the person who did lose his life over the weekend, he was spitting on police officers, kicking in the taillights of their cars just days prior to the awful incident which took place on Saturday. And with all of this, Code Pink, Answer, the People's Forum, the People for Socialism and Liberation, just some of those far left groups that are on the ground in Minnesota. And again, only 2% of all ICE activity, of all federal activity when it comes to law enforcement, is in the state of Minnesota. Yet, you have all of this Somali fraud taking place, the illegal alien conundrum that is shipping billions and billions of dollars, 19 plus billion that we know of, all the way to East Africa. Does it go through Ilhan Omar's office? Does it go through Attorney General Keith Ellison's office, who we know has radical ties to the Muslim Brotherhood and other extremist groups that are seeking to usurp the constitutional will and the Republican form of government? Not the party Republican, but the fact of that we have a republic. If we can stand by it, just as Benjamin Franklin responded to the gentleman outside of the Constitutional Convention way back in the 18th century, as we celebrate America 250 and await President Trump and his team. Perhaps some of those questions will be asked and perhaps some of those answers clarified for the American people on still a very snowy and icy day there in your nation's capital. We hope that you're staying safe with all of this, as temperatures are expected to drop over the course of the next several days. So we'll watch that name. Remember that Neville Roy Singham could be an individual largely tied to all of this chaos and the manufactured crisis that many Americans are realizing has become seemingly a normal way of life. Just pull out Saul Alinsky's Rules for Radicals, something that inspired the Barack Hussein Obama administration, including that of the autopen Joe Biden. We know he was not in control during his presidency, and it's good to have someone like Donald John Trump with the strength and the personality and the fortitude, along with this team of American patriots, to help make America safe again. Let's get to Truth Social and some of what's happening over there with cut number one, Mr. Producer, Mr. Too Late Jerome Powell, continuing to hold problems and issues right there at the Federal Reserve. Jerome Too Late Powell again refused to cut interest rates, even though he has absolutely no reason to keep them so high. He's hurting our country and its national security. We should have a substantially lower rate now than even this moron admits inflation is no longer a problem or a threat. He is costing America hundreds of billions of dollars a year in totally unnecessary and uncalled for interest expense. Because of this, of the vast amounts of money flowing into our country because of tariffs, we should be paying the lowest interest rate of any country in the entire world. Most of these countries are low interest rate paying cash machines, thought as of elegant, solid, prime, only because the USA allows them to be. The tariffs being charged to them while bringing billions into the country still allows most of them to have a significant trade surplus, though much smaller, with our beautiful, formerly abused country. In other words, I have been very nice, kind, and gentle to countries all over the world with more or mere flip of the pen, billions more would come into the USA, and these countries would have to go back to making money the old-fashioned way, not on the back of America. I hope they all appreciate, although many don't, what our great country has done for them. The Fed should substantially lower interest rates now, as tariffs have made America strong and powerful again, far stronger and more powerful than any other nation. And we will see what happens with that case that will determine whether or not we keep all of that tariff money. We're watching the Supreme Court closely on that. We thought that decision would come into the new year, but looking like those June decisions will be a part of all of that. We are awaiting President Trump to host a cabinet meeting. We'll take a quick commercial break here at the network for sponsors. Stick with us here on the right side of history.
Welcome to Right Side Broadcasting Network, your trusted conservative news outlet. At RSBN, we deliver the truth when the mainstream media falls short. Since 2015, we've proudly broadcasted every single one of President Trump's iconic MAGA rallies, bringing you the excitement and energy live before anyone else. By watching RSBN, you get an unfiltered front row view of the action on the ground. We interview the crowds to give a voice to millions of Americans just like you. We show you President Trump's speeches in their entirety, free from interruptions and censorship. We cover the stories that matter to you with the integrity and passion you deserve. Thank you for choosing RSBN as your home for America First News. Together, we stand strong, united, and informed. So join us and be part of the right side of history.
Hey y'all, it's Silk from Diamond and Silk Chit Chat Live. Look, don't forget to watch my show right here at Right Side Broadcasting Network, and I want you to support Right Side Broadcasting Network. It's imperative that you do so, okay? Bye-bye.
allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. You can scan that QR code now, RSBN10. That is the code, easy to remember, for 10% off. This is ivermectin, hydrochloroquine, antibiotics that will save you and yours from bacterial and viral infections, NAD+, and much, much more. 200 essential medications and emergency medical kits, the meds you trust delivered to your door. Welcome back to Right Side Broadcasting Network as we await the President of the United States there from the West Wing at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue with his cabinet. I'm sure it's going to be a very big one for questions and answer sessions. So grab that popcorn, and it's 5 o'clock somewhere, but hold off. Let's not do that unless you have the day off and enjoy what the president has to say with his cabinet. Now, cut number 2, Mr. Producer. Let's get to that real quick and then read some sponsors regarding, in case you missed it, Fulton County being investigated by federal agents. The FBI on the ground, allegedly Tulsi Gabbard, the DNI as well. We'll see if that is disclosed any further in regards to what's taking place there on the ground in the Fulton County surrounding the 2020 elections. President Trump's legal team exposing the 2020 election fraud at the Georgia State Farm Arena, pulling suitcases full of alleged fraudulent ballots from under tables after the election center was shut down, running the same stacks of ballots over and over and over all throughout the night until Biden was ahead, stealing the election from President Trump. This is exactly why the FBI raided the election center. This was yesterday in Atlanta, Georgia. This is only the beginning. Prosecutions are coming. We look forward to that. This was an essential part of even my campaign for state representative in 2020 against my opponent, who claimed that it was the cleanest and fairest election in the history of time. Well, let's see where the investigations lead, as now the investigators are becoming the investigated. Quite interesting, isn't it? As we thank mypillow.com/RSBN, Mike Lindell, the great candidate now for governor of Minnesota. He has all of his factories and manufacturing plants there in the great state of Minnesota. The mattress and topper sale now as low as $99.99 plus free shipping. mypillow.com/RSBN. Call today. Do not delay. 800-836-7566. mypillow.com/RSBN. You have over 2,000 options, so do not delay. Visit today with code RSBN, a great way to save. And I have the My Slippers. I enjoy MyPillow 1.0 for the MyPillow 2.0, just tremendous. Also, the Giza Dream Sheets. They are the most comfortable sheets you will ever have. They're all the way from the Mediterranean, but made right here in America. Again, up there in the great Minnesota that's been so much in the news lately. And the CEO and really great all-around friend of the network, Mike Lindell, throwing his hat into the ring. His life story, one that's inspirational, one that has turned to our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, and to those foundational principles of this country. And all he's asking for is election integrity and fairness and common sense. And that's what so much of this MAGA movement is about. mypillow.com/RSBN. Thank you, Mike Lindell, for supporting us here at the network. You may also donate if you like what you see. It's your go-to rally network, also your go-to live desk. Support us right here at Right Side Broadcasting Network. It's rsbnetwork.com/donate. Also text RSBN to 801-801. If you'd like the check or money order, the old school way of doing things. I wrote a couple of letters recently. It's fun to get a piece of mail every once in a while. 1550 Opelika Road, Suite 6, Box 344. It's the loveliest village on the plains, Auburn, Alabama, 36830. Once again, 1550 Opelika Road, Suite 6, Box 344, Auburn, Alabama 36830, as Auburn home to Auburn University and Rightside Broadcasting Network. As we see some live video from not live, replayed video, the 2024 campaign. And I'm thinking it's going to be a lot like that as President Trump hitting the ground in Clive, Iowa for the unofficial kickoff of his 2026 midterm efforts to increase majorities in both the House of Representatives and the United States Senate. Lots of retirements happening and some going elsewhere. We have Senator Marsha Blackburn from Tennessee running for governor, also Amy Klobuchar up in Minnesota doing that as well, since Governor Tim Walz has made himself a lame duck in that race, not running for a third term. Cut number 6, Mr. Producer. The left seems to fear Secretary of State Marco Rubio. Why is that? Well, it's perhaps this video from when he was a United States Senator in his tenure where he learned so much about not only foreign policy, but what's happening right here at home, and why Cuban Americans specifically, those who have fled communism from places like Venezuela and Cuba, coming to the free sunshine state of Florida and watching these young grifters, if you will, 28 years young or perhaps younger, maybe somewhat older, but able-bodied, taking Medicare payments and Medicaid and refusing to actually go to work, while these people simply wanted a chance at the American dream. Marco Rubio, able to communicate this, and that's why, as President Trump has said, our greatest Secretary of State.
This is one of the many reasons that the left freaks out every time Marco Rubio speaks.
One of the things I see a lot in South Florida are people that have been in this country that maybe came from Cuba 45 years ago. They've worked here their entire lives. They retire. They get $800, $1,000 a month from Social Security. And then they run into somebody who just got here from Cuba 3 months ago, 29 years old, doesn't work, and is given $1,500 a month in benefits by our government because they're refugees. A year later, is traveling back to Cuba 15 times. So you're a refugee fleeing oppression from a place that you now go back and visit 15 times the following year. And in the meantime, we're giving you Medicaid, food stamps, health care for your children, cash payments from the refugee fund. So imagine if you've been working here for 40 years and your Social Security check is smaller than the benefits going to a 28-year-old able-bodied person who just got here. That's real. That happens. That's happening every day. That makes no sense.
In case you missed it yesterday, Trump accounts. This is going to be a game changer for those born now through the rest of the administration, but also if you have kids, especially if they're 10 or under when it comes to these new accounts. It will be very much like an IRA. And as Mr. Wonderful, Kevin O'Leary, and Nicki Minaj, among other business leaders and public influencers, private celebrities, to those who are dealing with the S&P 500, by the way, going up over 7,000 points for the first time yesterday. Thank you, tariffs. Thank you for the economic policies of this great country. Howard Lutnick at Commerce, and of course, Scott Bessent at Treasury. But the left continues their hogwash and their messaging that simply does not stick. America is roaring back in this golden era, a golden age of 250 years. What a way to celebrate our birthday coming up on the 4th of July. But here's a little bit of a background with cut number 7, in case you missed how these Trump accounts can help you and your family and prepare the next generation of Americans.
Let's break down Trump accounts, the new child savings program rolling out in 2026. These are tax-advantaged investment accounts created for kids under 18 who are U.S. citizens with a Social Security number. Every eligible child gets a $1,000 seed deposit from the federal government. No action required, except you have to open the account. You enroll by making an election on IRS Form 4547 when you file your taxes or through the online Trump Accounts portal once available. Once established, the account is invested and grows tax deferred over time, similar to a traditional IRA until your child turns 18. You can help it grow by contributing up to $5,000 per year And even employers or family can contribute too. Funds can be accessed without penalty when the child turns 18 for qualified expenses, like education, a first home purchase, or starting a business to jumpstart the American dream. This is one more way Republicans are delivering bigger paychecks, bigger tax returns, and bigger opportunities in 2026.
I feel like Charlie Sheen. We are winning. Remember those memes back in the day? Well, some people are not winning, and it's those on the ground in Minneapolis, Minnesota, with all the tragedy. And Border Czar Tom Homan stating at the end of that presser earlier on today that every day he says a prayer that he does not want people to die on every side of this issue. And that is very true. We've seen him in action, the way he's working overtime, and these agents and Tom specifically taking home the worst of humanity, what they've seen. Think about this. If you have little kids, especially, and toddlers, walking over that border, not able to speak English, trafficked by coyotes, all thanks to the Autopen and Alejandro Mayorkas. It's disgraceful to think about. And now the BBC confirming that Alex Preddy, before his untimely death on Saturday, well, he may be someone who was very active in this continued violence against our ICE agents and federal law enforcement with cut number 8, as he seems to be aggressing on these agents earlier in prior days before the shooting.
This is a moment the news movement filmed on January 13th in Minneapolis, showing a man who appears to be Alex Preddy interacting with federal immigration agents 11 days before Border Patrol shot and killed him. Our footage was analyzed by the BBC, whose facial recognition technology confirmed his identity to a 97% degree of accuracy. On the morning of January 13th, our team received a tip that federal agents were blocking a street at the corner of East 36 and Park Avenue in Minneapolis. We arrived around 10:15 a.m. We saw observers shouting at the agents as they walked back to their vehicles. When they started driving away, the man kicked their taillight. An agent then got out of the vehicle, grabbed him, and pushed him to the ground. During the altercation, agents fired tear gas and pepper balls into the crowd. They continued to hold the man down before they retreat and he walks away. The man in our footage is wearing a similar outfit to what Preddy was wearing on the day he was killed. What appears to be a gun is also visible above his waistband. Here, he continues to stand at the scene. On the day he was killed, the Department of Homeland Security claims Preddy, a 37-year-old ICU nurse, approached officers holding a handgun. That claim has been contradicted by analysis of bystander videos from multiple news investigations, which concluded that Preddy was holding a phone, not a gun, when he was pinned to the street. Shortly after the altercation we filmed here on January 13th, federal agents drove away. Soon after that, we left.
That's a masterclass in how not to deal with law enforcement, whether at the local, state, or federal level. As Tom Homan said earlier today, if you'd like to protest, feel free to do so peacefully. You do not engage by spitting on officers, by kicking federal property, and by attacking them or impeding their investigations. It's common sense. And as he mentioned in the presser, with the constant dog whistles and the duck calls and the screaming and the shouting and the actual impeding of these investigations, it all has to stop. And as he mentioned, calling it back into March of 2025, that bloodshed would happen if leaders like Waltz and Frey continued up the heated rhetoric of Gestapo language and calling people Nazis, law enforcement, simply for doing their jobs. Mr. Homan also mentioning that if you don't like the law, run for Congress, go volunteer on a campaign, change the law. These agents are simply enforcing it, and we owe them a debt of gratitude for what they do on a daily basis. Most people would not be able to handle it, and they bring back an amazing amount of PTSD to tragedy that they see on a daily basis. And the proof is in the pudding. If we look at all these numbers, the cities are getting safer over the course of this tenure. We are bringing down violent crimes from rapes and assaults to larceny and also grand theft auto, among other crimes that only now the federal government seemingly can enforce. But when they are able to work with local and state law enforcement, it's a winning solution for the American people. And we thank everyone in Border Patrol, ICE, HSI, to the FBI, who give tirelessly to this great country of ours as we await for President Trump to host a cabinet meeting. There is a national side to the story. There's also an international side to the story, and something that's just being developed, just being exposed, is that of Neville Roy Singham, who might be one of the individuals from Massachusetts, of all places, an American citizen, at least born into this great country, now apparently living in Beijing, China, and running operations through NGOs and through far-left radical funding to create the chaos that you see manufactured by the mainstream media and amplified out there in these cold and severe temperatures that we're seeing in Minnesota and really throughout the country. These leftist activist groups funded by this Singham, the People's Forum, Code Pink, Answer, the PSL, among others throughout this country. So we'll watch that, as that's a very developing story. And with the honest media out there, we will tell it like it is. And we thank our partners in doing such when it comes to getting this information out there. The American people are smart. And because of what happened back in 2020 with the BLM insurrections and the result of what took place also in Minneapolis, Minnesota with George Floyd, and the fact that the First Lady, still in office of Minnesota, opened up her windows to smell tire fire and to praise revolution. These are communist, radical revolutionaries, and they take it right out of the playbook of Saul Alinsky. It's common sense, and it was glorified by two administrations, Barack Hussein Obama, and really amplified during the auto pen, with Alejandro Mayorkas all at the root of this. This is all in the backdrops of a $19 billion plus scandal in Somali fraud, with illegal aliens taking advantage of what is the most crucial to perhaps you and your own family at home, child care. Nick Shirley exposing the Leering Center. Apparently, they can't spell learning. It's amazing. They can't run a country, but somehow they come over here as refugees and are able to scam the American people out of billions and billions of dollars. That, coupled with the FBI raid, where apparently DNI Tulsi Gabbard was on the ground in Fulton County, Georgia, regarding the 2020 election. So lots of news coming out this week and developments that we might get more concrete information in and of the moment as we are about to see President Trump hosting a cabinet meeting there at the White House, 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue in the West Wing. Let's take a quick commercial break for those sponsorships here at the network. Stick with us here. It's a bright, sunshiny day. Cold. Lots of ice and snow on the ground there in the federal city of Washington, D.C.
Welcome to Right Side Broadcasting Network, your trusted conservative news outlet. At RSBN, we deliver the truth when the mainstream media falls short. Since 2015, we've proudly broadcasted every single one of President Trump's iconic MAGA rallies, bringing you the excitement and energy live before anyone else. By watching RSBN, you get an unfiltered front row view of the action on the ground. We interview the crowds to give a voice to millions of Americans just like you. We show you President Trump's speeches in their entirety, free from interruptions and censorship. We cover the stories that matter to you with the integrity and passion you deserve. Thank you for choosing RSBN as your home for America First News. Together, we stand strong, united, and informed. So join us and be part of the right side of history.
Hey y'all, it's Silk from Diamond and Silk Chit Chat Live. Look, don't forget to watch my show right here at Right Side Broadcasting Network, and I want you to support Right Side Broadcasting Network. It's imperative that you do so, okay? Bye-bye.
allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. You can scan that QR code now, RSBN10. That is the code, easy to remember, for 10% off. This is ivermectin, hydrochloroquine, antibiotics that will save you and yours from bacterial and viral infections, NAD+, and much, much more. 200 essential medications and emergency medical kits, the meds you trust delivered to your door. Welcome back to Right Side Broadcasting Network. I'm Robert McNeely. It is Thursday, January 29th in the Lord's year, 2026. And as we celebrate this Thursday morning, we hope you're having a great one. But the start of the year, so much happening, I'm sure, for you and your family. It always seems to be a little bit slower after the holidays, but then all of a sudden we gas it with March Madness right around the corner. We will toss it right to the White House now, President Trump and the cabinet. And we will be there just in a moment, but at first we'll go to All Family Pharmacy to thank them for their great contributions here at the network. It is traditional pharmacies that are blocking you from perhaps having that life-saving medication there. And I have this great kit right here for flu and cold season. 20% off right now. Get that travel kit, get the sinus infection kit, and the emergency medical kit, all for 20% off now. Scan that QR code there, allfamilypharmacy.com/emergency-kits, code RSBN20. And you will have this on hand. Look at the storm that just took place and all the ice, and it might have kept you inside the house for a couple of days. I hope you had Tamiflu on hand in case you're not feeling so well. But outside of just sleep and eating well and all of the good stuff there, make sure to have this, allfamilypharmacy.com/emergency-kits, RSBN20. That is the go-to right now. Thank you for sponsoring us on the right side of history as we're getting closer to that. And still a good breakfast time if you're starting your workday out there in the Golden State of California. We will pitch it now to the White House, President Trump and the cabinet.
Flag and various others. It's, I think, quite spectacular. It's never looked this good, and hopefully we're going to do work that's never been as good. So I think that's basically what's happened in our first year. We've had an amazing year, and this will be our first cabinet after the year, so we're starting our second year. Tremendous progress has been made. I want to thank my entire cabinet for 12 months of unprecedented achievements. We really have. I mean, it's unprecedented. The numbers we've had on the economy and growth, you see them, and that's despite a Democrat shutdown. Without the shutdown, we would have picked up about 1.5 points more than already high numbers, record-setting numbers. So this has been, I think, and a lot of people say it, the most successful year of any administration in American history. First year, there's never been a first year like this, including the fact that we extinguished 8 wars, and another one we think is coming Steve Witkoff's working very hard, and Jared and everybody else, and I think it's coming. It was just announced that the murder rate in our country is the biggest drop ever recorded. It's at the lowest level in 125 years. First in recorded history, it's the lowest in at least 125 years. It's a wonderful thing. And that crime is way down, and one of the reasons was we've taken a lot of bad people and gotten them out of our country. In some cases, they're so bad that we put them in prison because we don't want them to even take a chance of coming back in, even though our border is very secure, record-setting secure. We had 0 illegal aliens being admitted into our country for the last 8 months. That's hard for even me to believe, but the people that make up the lists are supposedly nonpartisan, but I would say they lean toward the Democrat side. And if they say that, I'm all for it. As you know, we've had a situation take place with respect to Venezuela. I want to just thank General Kane and his staff for the job that they've done is incredible. Nobody's ever seen anything like it. And once it did take place, I want to thank the leadership of Venezuela. We're getting along really well with them. The relationships have been very strong, very good. And they have informed me that they feel there's very good security, very strong security. We're working with the various people involved, including Chris and Doug and everybody on the oil. We have the major oil companies going to Venezuela now, scouting it out and picking their locations, and they'll be bringing back tremendous wealth for Venezuela and for the United States, and the oil companies will do fine too. Venezuela will actually make for themselves more money than they've ever made before, and that's a good thing. And the people of Venezuela were literally in the streets waving American flags. They were so happy. And the people in our country, like in the Doral section of Miami, which is considered Little Venezuela, they're thrilled. And I just spoke to the president of Venezuela, informed her that we're going to be opening up all commercial airspace over Venezuela. American citizens will be very shortly able to go to Venezuela, and they'll be safe there. They'll be safe. It's under very strong control. And the people of formerly of Venezuela, some want to go back and some want to go back to visit, and they're going to be able to do that. So I've instructed Sean Duffy and everybody else concerned, including the military, that if you would, by the end of today, I'd like you to have the airspace over Venezuela. Planes can go to Venezuela, opened up. Okay?
Yes.
Thank you very much. And I want to thank all of the people in Venezuela for what what they went through, and I want to thank the leadership for really they're doing a good job. And just as I promised, we've defeated the Biden inflation nightmare and achieved explosive new economic growth. The Atlanta Fed is predicting an astounding 5.4% GDP growth in the fourth quarter, and that's despite the fact that we had a Democrat shutdown. That number would have been 7%, which is a number nobody's ever heard of. And we've been given great national security because of tariffs, and we've also been given unprecedented income because of tariffs. Part of the income that we gave, $12 billion, we gave to the farmers of our country, so that yesterday I was up in Iowa, and they were very happy, Madam Secretary.
Yes, sir.
They were very, very happy. They were great. So the GDP growth in the fourth quarter was great. And it's going to be, I think we're going to have an amazing and incredible year. Hopefully we won't have a shutdown. We're working on that right now. I think we're getting close. The Democrats, I don't believe, want to see it either. So we'll work in a very bipartisan way. I believe not to have a shutdown. We don't want a shutdown. And just yesterday, the S&P 500 hit 7,000 for the first time ever. There's never been any time at which it's done like that. And the other stocks also, I think it was 52 times for the Dow, had hit a record high. But the 7,000 was not a number that was even thinkable if you go back a year ago. So S&P hit 7,000 for the first time ever. The stock market has set, it's actually 52, 53 all-time record highs since the election. adding $9 trillion in value to savings, retirement accounts, and 401ks. And I mean, everybody benefits, but we have record stock markets. Companies have never done well. And most importantly, if you think about it, after 4 years in which Biden got much less than $1 trillion of investment into our country, actually it was taken over 11 months, even though we're 12 months. In 11 months, we've taken in more than $18 trillion. So they did less than $1 trillion, Scott, in a period of 4 years, and we've done $18 trillion in less than 1 year. So there's never been anything like that. No other country has done those numbers, by the way, in history. 10 years ago, one country did $3 trillion. No other. We did $18 trillion is being invested now. Thousands of businesses, plants, equipment all over the country are being built right now. And they're going to be opening pretty soon. And when they open, you'll see numbers like nobody's ever seen before. The economy is doing amazingly well. I wish the press would report it, but people are finding out. They're seeing it. It's coming. It's becoming pretty evident. It's hard to hide. Biden inflation, which is really stagflation, cost the typical family $34,000. Think of that, $34,000. But after 1 year, growth in real incomes is outpacing inflation by more than $3,000 under Trump. So one cost $34,000 and one made $3,000. That's a big swing. Gasoline has plunged to, think of this, over $4 a gallon, depending on where you are. In California, it's $7, $8 a gallon. While I was in Iowa, and they had $1.85, because I had it at $1.99 a gallon. And I was corrected by two farmers that said, I just bought my gasoline for $1.85. So, Chris, you have to be doing something right, you and Doug, right? But I don't want to give you too much confidence. You got to keep it going. We're drilling, I think I can say we're drilling more than at any time ever in the history. We're taking out more energy out of our land, but specifically, if you look at oil and gas, we've never been anywhere even close. Is that a correct statement?
That is correct. All-time records.
Yeah, great. It's a great job. Well, it's supply and demand. So that's going down rapidly. And, you know, when energy goes down, everything else goes down. They tried to do their thing. It was a disaster. Then they ran back very late to the Trump policy, but they didn't do the Trump policy. They cut leases. They did everything that they could do, but they lost it. And they were very high, and we're now less than $2 in many areas, $2.30 a gallon average. Grocery prices, airfares, hotels, car payments, and rent prices are coming down very fast. And you don't hear the word affordability issued by the Democrats anymore. Now they're going into other things because they're getting beaten badly on affordability. Remember that when I was elected, I came into office, I inherited a total mess, starting with eggs, which were 4 times higher than they were just a year before. And Brooke got them down very quickly before Easter. They said they wanted me to buy plastic eggs for the egg hunt, at the very famous egg hunt at the White House. Sir, would you buy plastic eggs? And we buy a lot of, like 100,000 eggs. I said, we're not going to buy plastic eggs. And by the time we had the egg hunt a few months later, we had the prices down pretty good. And now they're really low. Now they're at a very low level. So we really have, you don't hear the word affordability because we inherited very high prices and we inherited the highest inflation in 48 years. I say the history of our country. I think it sounds almost the same. Actually, I think 48 years sounds actually worse for some reason. So I'll go with the 40 because the press corrected me. I said history and they said, it's not history, it's 48 years. I said, I'll accept that. And we had the highest inflation in 48 years. We have now as you saw yesterday with the Fed, I'm not a fan of his. He said that inflation essentially is not a factor. It's really been pretty amazing. I just put out a statement about his statements. I won't repeat them here because they're too angry. And thanks to our tax cuts, millions of Americans will soon receive record-setting tax refunds. You're going to get a lot of tax refunds, with the average refund expected to be over $1,000 higher than it has been at any time. So we're going to be getting some pretty good refunds, a lot of people. If congressional Democrats had their way, Americans would right now be facing the largest tax hike ever. You know, their proposal was to raise taxes very substantially. And our proposal, which is in the great big beautiful New Deal, it's a New Deal in its own way. It's a Republican version of the New Deal. Right behind you is a nice picture of FDR. This is a much better deal than the FDR deal. But we have the great big beautiful bill, and it's given tremendous tax cuts and a lot of other things. People are now finding out how good it is, and it's just kicked in as of January 1st, by the way. So we're really starting to see it. Even though it's a month, we're really starting to see it. The U.S. economy would be cratering if they had won this election. Our country would be in very bad shape. Would be maybe not much of a country anymore. I don't think it would be a country anymore. They were doing everything wrong, but they were going to give you the largest tax hike in history, and we're giving you the largest tax cut in history in the great big beautiful bill. In addition, I think it's very good. I think it's very important. You have no tax on overtime, no tax on tips, and no tax on Social Security. But you also have, you're getting this is the first time this ever happened. If you buy a car, you go out and borrow money, you get an interest deduction. You take the interest rate, the interest that you're paying on the loan, you're able to deduct it for income tax purposes. So that's a first ever, and I think it's going to be great for everybody, including the car companies. I was in Detroit 3 weeks ago. I went to the Ford factory, spoke to the General Motors people. It's all the same. They're doing better than they've ever done. The factory I went to was like a World War I, earlier than World War I factory opened up. One of the oldest buildings, but one of the biggest. And Ford was getting ready to close it a couple of years ago, and then they saw that I was doing well, and it looked like I would have a good chance of winning. And they kept it going, barely going. And last week they announced, during my visit, they announced that they're going to round the clock production. They never thought it was. I said, did you ever think? I spoke with Bill Ford and the president of Ford. They were both there, and they said, we can't even believe it. We were going to close this building 2 years ago, and now it's going round the clock. He said, we cannot. I mean, they said, we wish it was twice the size, but they're now building additional plants in the United States, as is everybody else. You have AI building, but the car companies, I love the car companies, and you have them, they're all coming back. They're coming back from Mexico, they're coming back from Canada, they're coming back from Japan, and they're coming back from Germany, all over Europe. They're coming back, they're building here because they want to avoid the tariffs. They don't want to pay the 15%, in some cases 25% tariff. Could be a lot higher than that if it wasn't working. So because of that, they're all coming back. One statistic yesterday that Scott told me is that for the first time ever, tell them about the steel in Japan, that we are now making more steel. Go ahead, please.
So yesterday they reported for the first time in 26 years, the United States of America produced more steel than Japan. And that is entirely driven by your tariffs.
Amazing. Now think of it. He obviously said that much better than I did, because I got no applause, and I'm giving you home run after home run. He says one thing and everybody else. I should have saved that one for myself. No, but think of it. First time, and they read almost 30 years, but I guess it's what, 26, 27 years, that we are now producing more steel than Japan. Japan being a big steel producer. Japan and other countries really took our steel production away from us. Now, if you think of this, 3, 4 years ago, the steel companies were all closing up. We worked a fantastic deal with U.S. Steel. We saved U.S. Steel. And now it's all coming about, but and that's just the beginning. There are a lot of steel plants right now being built. So that's an amazing number. Nobody would have believed that. If you would have said that 3, 4, 5 years ago, people would have said, yeah, it's not a true fact, but so it has to be true, because otherwise you question me on everything. I have to be extremely accurate. I don't exaggerate it. I don't want to exaggerate, because you will call me. You don't call other people, but you would call me under my most favored nation spot, which I think is the most important thing, Bobby, of all. what we've done, because we're bringing drug prices down by 80, 90%, depending on the way. You could say 5, 6, 7, 800%. Depends on the way you want to calculate it, right? But let's go the old-fashioned way. But drug prices for prescription drugs will be down 80, 90%, 75%, 68%. They've only gone up for years and years and years. They've only gone up, and now we're going to have essentially the most favored nation. We're going to have the most favored price in the whole world. Whatever the lowest price in the world is, that's what we're going to pay. And I don't want to go into a big deal, but nobody else could have gotten this but this administration. I'm being very nice when I say that. The cost of prescription drugs is coming down by a number that was never even thought of. This will have a huge impact on healthcare, by the way, because obviously drugs are a big part of healthcare, and it will help repair some of the Unaffordable Care Act's damage that they've done, because the Unaffordable Care Act, which is Obamacare, it's unaffordable. It's not affordable, and it's a disaster. And hopefully we will be paying money directly to the people instead of giving the insurance companies the money. They'll go into a healthcare savings account or whatever it is. But think of it, we pay the money, billions and billions, really trillions of dollars going to insurance companies. We want that money to go to the people. They buy their own health care. And it's so popular. The problem we have is the Democrats are owned by the insurance companies. They're literally owned lock, stock, and barrel by the insurance companies, and they hate it. But the people love it, including all Democrats. So I think we'll perhaps be successful with it. But it was an idea I had. You know, I read the papers, and I'm reading one of the stories about the insurance companies, how much money they're making, where they received, billions and billions of dollars for this stuff from the United States of America, and their stock has gone up by 1,400%. Think of it, 1,400. One went up 1,700%. Numbers went up. If you go up 1,000%, you're doing bad in that business, right? And it's all because of the money. Not all, but mostly because of the money the United States pays to the insurance companies. They say, this is big stuff. And I asked somebody, why don't we just pay the people directly? And they said, that's a good idea. You know, it's funny, it's a very complicated business, but actually it's not so complicated. And I went to Bobby and I went to Dr. Oz. I said, can I talk to you guys about this? Is this the kind of money the insurance companies get? Yes. Why don't we pay the people directly? And the primary answer was that the Democrats will never go along with it. But the people go along with it, because I put it out, it went viral. It went viral. Susie, I went all over the place. It became the biggest story. I just said it. And so I think we have a great situation if we could do it. But if you think most favored nation policy for drugs will bring your drug prices down at levels. So now if they're selling a pill for $10 in London and $130 in New York, the London price will go up to $20 and we'll go down to $20. So we'll go from 130 down to 20. And by the way, tariffs did it again, because the drug company said, we'll do it begrudgingly, but they were okay. But we'll do it, but no nation's going to approve it, because even if you raise the price by, like on a pill, $10 to $20, you're doubling the price of their prescription drugs. I said, no, they'll do it. And when I got them on the phone, I said, if you don't do it, we're going to charge you very substantial tariffs, more money than that's going to cost you. And they said, we'll do it. And before, I don't know that any other president even tried to do it. We can't find it. But if they did try, they wouldn't have gotten through the companies. They wouldn't have gotten through the company, and then they wouldn't have gotten through the country. I spoke with Macron. He was the first one. He was not at that time wearing sunglasses. And he said, no, Donald, I will not do this. I will not. I won't even consider. You're asking me to double the price. I said, you have no choice. You have to do it, because you guys have been ripping us off. In other words, the whole world, we've been subsidizing the whole world on drug costs. That's why they were $10 and we'd be at 130. As an example, there were many examples. I could give you examples even worse. He said, no, I will not do that. And I said, yes, you will. 100% you'll do it. He said, no, I won't do that, Donald. You're asking me to double the cost of our prescription. We will not do that. I said, look, you've been ripping us off now for decades. We're not going to do it anymore. You can do it under Biden and Obama and other people. You're not going to do it under us. We won't do it. I said, well, if you don't do it, I'm going to charge you a 25% tariff on all of your wine, champagne, and everything else you sell into the United States. He said, like I said, I will do it. And that was the end of the conversation, right? That was the end of the conversation. So now we have favored nations that everybody said would be impossible to get. And I then had the same conversation with 15 other countries. Every one of them agreed. After a short conference, they all said no. And then within a matter of seconds, they said, we would be very happy to do that. Thank you for asking in such a nice way. And it's a great achievement. I think it's going to be one of the best achievements we've had in this country in a long time. So we're going to be knocking drug prices down at levels never seen before. I want to thank the drug companies because once they agreed, they really did. They felt it was very unfair. One of them told me it's actually a relief to agree because this has been just a rough thing for me, to justify it. Because they couldn't justify it. I said, how come in London I can buy something for $10 and in New York I have to pay $130? And they go, well, it's research and development. I said, yeah, but you have research and development from them. Made in the same factory, made in everything. This is where my friend, who's very successful, I told you, a seriously overweight person, he takes the fat pill or the fat shot. And he was in London and he said, costs $87 there, costs $1,300 in New York. What's going on? He called me up. And I knew that, but he put it in a very blunt way. I've known him a long time. He's a crude individual, but smart as hell, made a lot of money. But he just thought it was sort of ridiculous. He happened to be in London and he got the shot, Ozempic, I think, or one of them. And I told him it wasn't working. For him, it didn't work. But he brought up a good point. It didn't work. I told him, he knows who I'm talking about. He's going crazy. He begs me not to mention
He's not
his
talking
name.
about me, ladies.
No, it's not our great vice president. No, but he begs me not to mention his name because he's become very famous without mentioning his name. And he is actually a very well-known business person. But he did make a point. But I knew the point very well. We were always paying far more than any other nation. We were subsidizing the world. Right now, there's no more of that. So we're going to be bringing the drug prices down at numbers never seen before. It's going to have a huge impact, positive impact on healthcare. So with that, we are going to ask a couple of people to say a few words. We're not going to go through the whole table because the last time we had a press conference, it lasted for 3 hours. And some people said he closed his eyes. Look, it got pretty boring. In all fairness, I love these people. But there's a lot of people. It was a little bit at the boring side. But I didn't sleep. I just closed them because I wanted to get the hell out of here. Some of them, I didn't sleep, by the way. I don't sleep much, let me tell you. But it's funny, some of them got me in a blink. When you go like, and they took me as at the closed segment of my cycle. And they said he's sleeping. And besides that, Marco, between these two guys, if I was sleeping, they'd be waking me up very fast. They'd be knocking me, come on, you got to wake up, boss. But no, we've had great meetings. Look, we're the most transparent presidency by far, and I love going around the room. But we're going to pick a few people. I think I would like to ask Steve if he could just give us a brief description of how well we're doing in the Middle East, because we have peace in the Middle East now. There's a couple of little minor flames that we put out very easily. And very importantly, we got our last hostage back, which is incredible. Unfortunately, this was something that nobody said could be done. And I will tell you, Hamas was a big factor in getting all of the hostages back. We were not happy with them, and they had to bring them back, and they found the dead hostages, the bodies of hostages. And those parents wanted their sons back, I think in all cases sons. But they wanted their sons and their family. They wanted their sons back as much as the people that had living hostages that we got them back to. So we got the 20, but remember, we got hundreds back previous to that. But I always said getting those last 20 back is going to be very tough. And we got them back, and we got all of the bodies back also, which to those parents was just as important as getting back the son that was living. Steve, could you give us a little description, please?
Well, your policy of peace through strength, that's what delivered them home. Without that pressure, it never happens. We are in the second phase now. We've stood up for the first time, Mr. President, on your behalf, a technocratic, all Arab government. We've got the terrorists out of there, and they're going to demilitarize. They will, because they have no choice. So we expect that. Pardon me?
And now we want to get Hamas no guns, right?
Right. They're going to give it up. They're going to give up the AK-47s.
A lot of people said they'll never disarm. Looks like they're going to disarm. And they did help us with those bodies, getting them back.
And that family is so grateful to you. They called. I spoke to them. Jared spoke to them. You know, it's an amazing story. He broke his shoulder, but he went out there because he didn't want his friends to fight alone. He would be alive today, but for that. He had no reason to go out with a broken shoulder, and he went out and fought them courageously.
And died.
And died.
That's right. It's a great story, and the parents are great. They were the only ones who didn't, they came back pretty rapidly, actually, considering. And we had got some back initially with the initial group. After that, we had to get a lot. That's a tough job. That's a nasty job, too. Who would want that one? That's a nasty job. And between Israel and Hamas working together, if you can believe it, they got them back. And we got the last one back yesterday, and the parents are so happy. It's amazing, actually, how
we sent a message to the parents on your behalf, as you suggested, and they were so grateful. I have a note for you.
Grateful to me is a much better word, because it's hard to be happy, but they were actually. I mean, they couldn't believe that they had their baby boy. The mother said, my baby boy back. It's a very terrible thing. Steve, Russia, Ukraine, we've making a lot of progress. Could you explain that?
The Ukrainians actually said that we've made more progress since Geneva than they've seen in the last 4 years of that conflict. So we had 5 Russian generals last Sunday in Abu Dhabi with Jared and Dan Driscoll, and we think we made a lot of progress. The talks will continue in about a week, but lots of good things happening between the counterparties, discussing the land deal.
They're talking together.
We have a security protocol agreement that's largely finished, a prosperity agreement that's largely finished, and I think the people of Ukraine are now hopeful and expectant that we're going to deliver a peace deal sometime soon.
And because of the cold, extreme cold, they have the same that we do. I personally asked President Putin not to fire on Kiev and the cities and towns for a week during this. It's extraordinary. It's not just like cold, it's extraordinary cold, record-setting cold. Over there too, they're having the same. It's a big pile of bad weather, the worst. But it was really. They said they've never experienced cold like that. And I personally asked President Putin not to fire into Kiev and the various towns for a week. And he agreed to do that. And I have to tell you, it was very nice. A lot of people said, don't waste the coal, you're not going to get that. And he did it, and we're very happy that they did it.
That's correct.
Because on top of everything else, that's not what they need, is missiles coming into their towns and cities. So I just thought I should say it. I thought it was a very good thing. And Ukraine was, almost they didn't believe it, but they were very happy about it, because they are struggling badly.
I think it shows, Mr. President, how you provide an overarching sort of presence in these negotiations. The Ukrainians never thought it could happen. The Russians are doing things maybe that people wouldn't give them the credit for doing, and I think it always comes down to your indomitable spirit.
Well, it was a good thing. If you think it's cold over here, they say in Ukraine you can add another 20% to it. It was a very cold place anyway, but this was, they see numbers that were they'd never seen numbers like that, cold numbers like that. So it was, I thought I should mention it. Could I ask Scott Bassett, we have so many things happening, could I ask you to maybe say a few words, please?
Yes, sir. So The one big beautiful bill that was passed on July 4th last year, we're starting to see the effects kick in. You mentioned the great economy. One of the things in the one big beautiful bill, Mr. President, it was an honor to host you, and as you said, the best rapper in the world, Nicki Minaj, at yesterday's Trump Accounts Summit.
She was great.
We've now had 1 million people sign up for Trump accounts just this week. We think there'll be 25 million families who are eligible. The segment that you and she did has 1 billion hits. 1 billion hits on the internet. So we're telling everyone, go fill out form 4547, trumpaccount.gov. So thanks to you, the Trump accounts, and Next Generation's America will benefit from today's record-breaking economy, record-breaking markets. Sir, when we came in, the Biden administration had destroyed the American people with the 3 I's: immigration, inflation, and interest rates. Immigration, check, you close the border. The inflation, as we've heard, back down to target. Prices are coming down, and interest rates, we hope there's more on the way. We've got gains in wages, low prices, and I think 2026 is going to be the year for the Trump boom. It's going to be a supply side boom. I enjoyed the trip out to Iowa. In the diner, the staff there was thanking you for the no tax on tips, and they're expecting big refunds from that. We saw the CEO of John Deere, who said, thanks to your tariffs, new plants in Indiana and North Carolina.
Two massive plants being built by John Deere. And he's the chairman and CEO, a wonderful guy. And I said he was at the event we had in Iowa, which is appropriate, John Deere, Iowa. But I said to him, so what are you doing? He said, we just announced 2 massive plants. In fact, they're going to have 1 plant for excavators. And he said, there hasn't been an excavator built in this country in 50 years or something. He said, they're taking it out of Japan and they're moving it into the United States. 2 very big plants. And I said, so why are you doing it? He said, because of you and because of tariffs. I said, if we didn't have tariffs, would you be doing it? He said, absolutely not. So it's very important, and I hope we're going to be successful with the Supreme Court case, because we're waiting, and we're taking in hundreds of billions of dollars, and we don't want to give it back, number one. And number two, and you know, the people that are fighting us on that case, by the way, are China-centric. These are people that are for China, but they're also outside of the United States. These are countries that have ripped us off for years and years, charging us tariffs. And now we're doing an amazing job, and we're getting it back. We're getting it all back and then some. And they're the ones that are leading that lawsuit that we have in front of the United States Supreme Court. So it's a very important lawsuit for our country. And hopefully it's going to work out. We're waiting a long time, but hopefully it's going to work out. We've taken in hundreds of billions, even trillions of dollars, and certainly we've taken in trillions of dollars of, you know, a big part of that $18 trillion that's coming in is because of tariffs. They're coming in, they're building because they don't want to pay the tariff, and the tariffs are very, you know, steep. They could be much steeper. You probably saw I put out a truth today, and the tariffs could be much steeper. We've been actually very nice about it. But even being nice about it, we've taken in hundreds of billions of dollars, and honestly, they've given us tremendous national security. The power that we have because of that. They have given us tremendous strength and national security. Go ahead, Scott.
Yes, sir. And the IEPA power you used on the tariffs, as you said, we're bringing in tens of trillions of investments. The tens of trillions of investments turns into factories construction, which turns into factory jobs, which turns into consumer spending. You've right-sized the government, so government employment is down, private sector is up. Growth was a stunning 4.7, 4.8% in the past 2 quarters, biggest back-to-back gains in a decade. And we are doing that with government finances improving. So that will bring down the borrowing costs. The calendar year budget for 2024, 7% deficit to GDP, highest when we weren't at war, not in a recession, all the way down to 5.4% and getting better. Biggest decline since 2014. generational gains in productivity, soaring productivity. We're going to lift workers' pay, record high prices, record high profits, and stock prices are soaring. You got a manufacturing renaissance, and all the key inflation metrics are trending lower. Over the past 3 months, the consumer price index is just 2.1, and core prices are even lower at 1.6. And I think that could trend below 1, given energy, as you talked about, the pharmaceutical discounts, and rents. So we're expecting a great year in 2026, Mr. President.
And we're going to be announcing next week, I think sometime, Scott and Howard and everybody, we're going to be announcing the head of the Fed, who that will be. And it'll be a person that will, I think, do a good job. We're paying far too much interest in the Fed. The Fed rate's too high, unacceptably high. We should have the lowest. And I think you read my statement today. I put out a statement before the meeting. But we should have the lowest interest rate anywhere in the world, because a lot of these countries are successful only because of us, because we allow them to have surpluses. And without surpluses, some of the countries that you most respect financially, that you say, oh, this one, that one, this one, that one, they're successful because we allow them to have surpluses. And we could easily stop that with the powers that we have, but we don't. We took some of it, but we took really just a small portion of it compared to what we could take if we wanted to. We should have the lowest interest rate anywhere in the world. They should be 2 points and even 3 points lower. And if it was, each point is the equivalent of, I would say, $500 billion. So if you got 2 points low, you have $1 trillion in saving, and it's almost, if you call it just a paper expense. You could do it with a pencil. It's not cutting. It's not saying we have to get rid of jobs, or it's just like literally so easy to do. But we have a guy that doesn't want to do it because he's, I think he's politically biased. I really do. I believe he's politically biased because most smart people say it's not even a question. But despite that, we were able to bust through. It's like busting through a wall. We were able to bust through a wall, and we have the kind of numbers that Scott and Howard with the steel and other things talk about. What would you say, Howard, in terms of how we're doing, generally speaking? Great businessman, very successful guy. He's doing a really good job. What would you say?
Well, no one, before you walked in the door, no one thought our economy could grow 2%. Fourth quarter, with the shutdown, 5.5%, and that means the first quarter you could see the United States of America with its $30 trillion economy grow in the 6% range, and no one thought that was possible. That's how you get jobs, that's how you get money down, that's how you fix the deficit. You are fixing everything with your policies. You have changed America and created the golden age.
Thank you. And with the help of the Fed, because we really, we want help, not hindrance. Why would the Fed hinder? But with the help of the Fed, with the right choice, if we make the right choice, a lot of times you make a choice, you think it's good, and it turns out to be not good. But with the help of the Fed, we could hit numbers that have never been hit before. We could hit 8, 9, 10. There's no reason why not. And, I talk about, if you go back 20 years, 25 years, I'm old enough to remember, when we had good news, when you announced good news, the stock market went up. You announce anything good, the stock market went up. You announce bad, the stock market went up. And that's the way it should be. But now it's, over the last 15 or so years, if you announce good news, that means they're going to raise interest rates because they want to kill it. So you can never really be that successful because you announce all record numbers, great, 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 because they're afraid of inflation. But growth doesn't have to have any impact on inflation. It can make inflation go down in many cases. So, and you've seen that with us. I mean, we're growing at a much faster rate than anybody thought was possible. We have very controllable inflation. With Biden, we were getting killed, and we had the worst inflation in 48 years in history, in the history of our country. And that's with going down. So growth is a great thing. It doesn't mean inflation. And I want to go back to a system where when we announce good news, they say that's great. We can lower interest rates instead of raise interest rates. And by the way, if inflation comes, we'll take care of it when it comes. But they're trying to guess it, and they're trying to get it 10 years before in advance. And we want to make this country greater than ever before, and I think we're doing that. But we want to make it that when we announce great news, everything goes up. If we announce bad news, that happens too. We bring it down and we control and we do what we have to do. But we can have numbers in the upside like nobody's ever seen before. I want to ask Bobby to say a few words, if he would, about some of the incredible things that we've been doing in your department with Oz and everybody else.
Mr. President, we're in the process of implementing your great healthcare bill, which is going to increase affordability, drive down costs, and increase the quality of healthcare for every American. You mentioned MFN, Most Favored Nation. We now have agreements with 16 of the 17 drug companies. And you asked us to do something, Clinton had promised to do this, Biden had promised to do this, Obama, Bush had all promised to do it. None of them succeeded. It was regarded as impossible, and you made it 10 times harder. As you said, not only do I want MFN, but I want them to all reshore their production to this country. And they don't have any money to do it because we've taken it all from them. And I want to make sure we continue to lead the world in innovation. We succeeded in all of those goals, and the proof that we did that is after we signed those agreements, the stock prices for those companies went up $1.3 trillion.
Amazing.
And they are reshoring. Eli Lilly is building 6 new plants, including an API plant. So the next time that we have a pandemic in this country, we're not going to be stuck buying API from China, who cuts us off. We're going to be able to make it right here. Novo Nordisk is building 4 new plants, and we are going to be releasing Trump RX so that every American can get the lowest prices in the developed world. In some cases, they're going to be lower than the lowest prices in the developed world. And that's going to be happening sometime probably in the next 10 days. So we're doing rural health care. We sent out $10 billion last week. The states have that money. They're going to be giving it to rural hospitals sometimes in the next 2 weeks. And we're going to revolutionize rural health care in this country. You are raising the influx of federal dollars to rural health care by 30% over the next 5 years. So 30% every year, more dollars, federal dollars, are going to be flowing to them. It's going to allow them to rebuild their decaying infrastructure, to retain providers, and also to revolutionize the use of AI and other technologies, which is going to dramatically lower the prices for rural Americans and raise the quality of their health care. Brooke and I released the dietary guidelines, which have been received incredible acclamation from both sides of the aisle. We are going to change the food culture in this country. Brooke gives away $405 million a day to buy food for Americans, and the WIC program, the Head Start program, SNAP, school lunches, the VA, and the military. They're now going to be getting real food for the first time. And Brooke came up with the ingenious idea of requiring every store in this country that accepts food stamps to double the amount of real food that they're selling. And this is going to drive changes in the market, and it's going to lower the cost of meats, of proteins, of whole grains, of fruits and vegetables, so that every American will have in their reach an affordable meal that actually is real food. 70% of American kids now are, 70% of the diet of American kids is now ultra-processed foods. That's why we're spending $5 trillion in treating chronic disease in this country every year. We are attacking fraud. We have Oz finding hundreds of billions of dollars of Medicaid, Medicare fraud in states like Minnesota and California, and we are clawing back that money. We also accomplished something that every American has promised, which is prior authorization. Now we have 80% of the insurance industry that has agreed to eliminate prior authorization in almost all of their procedures. So that this is going to dramatically change the experience of every American with the healthcare system. When you go to your doctor, your point of care, before you leave that office, you will know whether the insurance company is going to pay for the procedure or not. And that is going to, as I said, change the experience. We're also doing price transparency, which you asked during your first term. it never got implemented because the Biden administration never enforced it. We brought more enforcement actions against hospitals than in this 1 year, and the Biden administration brought in 4 years, and we're doing a crackdown so that every American, when you go to a restaurant, you look at the prices before you buy the meal. You ought to be able to do that when you go to a hospital, and by the time that we leave office, every American is going to have that guarantee. We're doing a lot of other stuff, but we were told to keep it short.
You are. And the autism, that's moving along really, isn't it? Trying to figure that out.
We've commissioned now dozens of studies, maybe over 100, and we are going to get those done for you.
Good. That's so important. Also, Eli Lilly, Merck, Pfizer, every drug company, they're spending trillions of dollars right now, as we speak, building plants in the United States because they want to be able to save a lot of money on tariffs. It'll be hundreds of percent, 100%, 200%, 300% in 2 or 3 years from now. So I said, you better have your plant built because in 2 years from now, before I leave office, it'll be a sad day. Very sad day for me. But before I leave, every one of these plants better be built because you're going to be paying 300% tariffs. And they're all building their little hearts out. I spoke with the head of Eli Lilly, who's a fantastic guy, a star, actually. He's a star, very smart. And he told me he's building 6 plants in the United States, big ones, and locations that I know very well, but all over the country. Merck is building, and Pfizer's building, and every one of them's building, and foreign companies are building. So it's an amazing thing that's happening, and you're doing a fantastic job. I read an article today where they think Bobby is going to be really great for the Republican Party in the midterms. So I have to be very careful that Bobby likes us. But we're letting you do your job, right?
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, man. You're doing a great job. You and Oz and the whole group, they're doing a...
I'll add this, and Marty McCary has done an incredible job at FDA.
That's true.
Last month, we approved more gene and cell therapies than any time in history. And we're making this a safe and productive and encouraging ecosystem for biotech so that China does not steal that industry from us.
Fantastic. I'm going to ask Scott Turner to speak really quickly about housing because, in my opinion, I have very strong opinions on housing. That's what I did for a long time. I did good with it. But, you know, we got to get interest rates down even lower. They are now pretty low, but we got to get them lower. And I'm a big factor, to me, the biggest factor is interest rates for housing. Only in that, you know, you have a lot of people that have become wealthy in the last year because their house value has gone up. And, you know, when you get the housing, when you make it too easy and too cheap to buy houses, those values come down. I don't want those values to come down. We have millions of people that own houses, and for the first time in their life, they're wealthy because their house is worth $500,000 or $600,000 or more or less, but more money than it's ever been worth before. I don't want to do anything to knock that down, and so I want to be very careful with this. You know, you make housing, I can turn on housing immediately, but you make it too easy and you're going to knock the value down of people that own houses. I want to, for those people, those millions of people that own houses, we're going to drive those values up, but we're also going to try making it easier for people to buy. The best thing that can happen for both groups of people is lower interest rates, and those interest rates are coming down, and with a proper, intelligent person at the Fed, that person will be able to work with us to get interest rates down. That covers all of the sins. It covers everything. Lower interest rates keeps the values up for the people that have housing and lets other people buy housing. And Scott, if you could just expand quickly on that.
Yes, sir. You did allude to when we first came in, sir, you know, our fiscal house in America was a mess. But because of your economic policies, the economy is thriving. And I do have some good news to share. As you said, you know, good news. I hope this will make the interest rates continue to go down. But because of your policies, sir, home sales in December, they rose sharply to their strongest pace in 3 years. A lot of people, when we first came in particular young people, were concerned and asking the question whether they would ever be able to afford to buy a house in America, which is the American dream. The 30-year fixed mortgage rate dipped to a multi-year lows, driving monthly payments down for the 2 years at the lowest levels. So more people can get a mortgage now, more families can be able to afford to get a home and achieve the American dream. At HUD last year, we helped and supported over 1 million people through FHA and Ginnie Mae to be able to buy a home. 500,000 of those were first-time home buyers, and hundreds of thousands of our veterans we supported. And so that's good news that millions of people in our country are now beginning to buy homes. We also, sir, saw that you are, and we're working with you, making bold action to ban institutional investors from buying single-family homes. Those homes are for the American people. So, sir, thank you for your leadership on that. Also working with Director Pulte over at FHFA to buy $200 billion worth of mortgage-backed securities, driving down even more the cost to get a home. And so we're grateful for those actions. Also, the One Big Beautiful Bill has been tremendous, making the low-income tax credit increase, working with Secretary Besant at Treasury to produce more projects and more homes in America. And the One Big Beautiful Bill also made our beloved opportunity zones permanent. And the media doesn't talk about opportunity zones very much, but I'll do it today because I know that they have been transformative in our country. Over 1 million people lifted out of poverty, sir, in opportunity zones, 300,000 new units of housing in opportunity zones, and a 3.4 increase in the value of houses.
And that's by the way, we have to give him credit. Senator, he's a great guy. Tim Scott came to see me. First administration, first term, and he had this idea for opportunity zones. And he gave me the idea, we did it, we implemented it. It's one of the most successful programs in the history of our country, and nobody talks about it. The press doesn't talk about it, but I want to just tell you, Tim Scott, Senator, South Carolina, did a great job, right?
Did a wonderful job, yes, sir.
Did a good job. He's a good man.
Yes, sir. And so those have been made permanent now. Will help millions of Americans to be able to afford to buy homes. Also, the One Big Beautiful Bill has been allowing HUD to make sure, working with Department of Homeland Security, that every person that lives in HUD-funded housing is an American citizen. A blind eye has been turned prior to us being here to people living in HUD-funded housing, but no more. We're going to take account and transparency to make sure. And sir, there's a lot of crime that goes on in public housing, but we're coming after the criminals and making sure that everybody in there is an American citizen. So thank you for your support. We are now have taken possession of our new building in Alexandria, and we're going to save the American taxpayers hundreds of millions of dollars. So sir, thank you for your support and your leadership.
Thank you, Scott. Great job. Appreciate it. One of the things Scott said, though, is, again, existing housing, people that own their homes, we're going to keep them wealthy. We're going to keep those prices up. We're not going to destroy the value of their homes so that somebody that didn't work very hard can buy a home. We're going to make it easier to buy. We're going to get interest rates down. But I want to protect the people that for the first time in their lives feel good about themselves. They feel like they've, that they're wealthy people. And I want them to understand it. There's so much talk about, we're going to drive housing prices down. I don't want to drive housing prices down. I want to drive housing prices up for people that own their homes. And they can be assured that's what's going to happen. Chris, could you say a few words about energy, please?
You bet, Mr. President. I can say with confidence that your energy dominance agenda is firing on all cylinders. United States oil production today is greater than Saudi Arabia and Russia combined, the number 2 and number 3 producers. Our natural gas production today is greater than Russia, China, and Iran combined, the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th largest natural gas producers. Huge production in the United States. Secretary Burgum at the Interior Department has taken in more money on oil and gas lease sales in the first year of this administration than the entire 4 years of the Biden administration. And beyond oil and gas, 6 new coal leases under this first year of this administration from the Interior Department, and coal production is growing again in the United States after years of decline. And this beautiful clean coal was the MVP of the huge cold snap we're in right now. I can say with some confidence, hundreds of American lives have been saved because of your leaning in and stopping the killing of coal and revitalizing coal. Coal, over the last few days, where we're at peak demand in electricity, has delivered 20 times more electricity than solar and batteries. Think about that, 20 times more.
That's because coal doesn't mind very cold weather, right? Clean, you're not allowed to say the word coal without proceeding by saying clean, beautiful coal. Clean, beautiful coal. It's not affected by bad weather. Rain, snow, sleet, freezing coal. How does it react under freezing cold weather?
It steps up and delivers big time. In fact, what coal did during this storm was deliver massively more electricity than it was delivering a month ago, because we needed far more electricity. Who can step up?
The windmills, by the way, are all frozen. You know that they don't turn. The windmills aren't turning. The windmills that these fools paid for. The fool is this country, because the people that have the windmills get massive subsidy, and they make a fortune on windmills that don't even work, and they don't produce anywhere near what they should be. And it's the worst, most expensive form of energy there is. And by the way, Europe is destroying itself with the stupid windmills they're putting all over their beautiful areas of most magnificent landscapes in the world, and they're just destroying. Europe, better get smart. Between immigration and energy, they're destroying. It's not recognizable. They've got to smarten up before it's too late. Please go ahead.
Yeah, in New England, with somewhat European energy policies, at peak demand time, very cold in New England, wind, solar, and batteries that you were just speaking of delivered less than 3% of the electricity needed at peak demand time, and that's when it matters. Because if electricity goes out when it's very cold, people die. Over 200 people died in a smaller cold snap during the Biden administration. This was massively larger geographically. We've had no failure of the electricity grid, no failure of long distance transmission lines. Local distribution lines have iced up and come down, and we have people from all over the country working to get those back up because people need their lights back on. But your energy policies delivered just a dramatically different outcome for the American people. If we'd continued the Biden-era policies for one more year, continued to shut down coal plants, continued these crazy climate restrictions that wouldn't even let power plants run at maximum demand time, we hadn't liberated all the backup generators that are sitting there. We gave up an emergency approval.
So a lot of those plants that were going to close, coal plants that were modern and good and threw up very little problem, and that were really powerful. You know, by the way, China does most of everything they're doing with coal. Not that we want to copy anybody, but you know, they make the windmills, but they don't have a lot of wind farms. That's somebody ought to look at that. How many wind farms do they have? Very, very few. They make them, they sell them, they make a fortune, but they don't use them. So the coal, I understand they're using it also as a great backup. So you build a plant, but they have it as a backup in case of tragedy, in case of really bad weather, et cetera, et cetera. They actually store coal on the site of other plants so that if they need emergency energy, the coal is always going to be there, whereas other things aren't. Is that correct?
Exactly. Coal just stepped up here to 25% of our electricity during this high demand time. Natural gas, coal, and nuclear. They are what run the American electricity grid. The others are ornaments and often expensive
and
ornaments.
You stopped plants from being demolished, right?
17 gigawatts of coal generation plants were slated to close last year that were stopped from being closure by this administration.
And if they were closed, we would be really tight on energy.
We would have had significant blackouts at these peak cold times, and extrapolating from the last storm during the Biden administration, I think at least hundreds of deaths. Because in the South, a lot of heating is done with electricity generation. If those grids go down, people die. So these, and when you're going back to the Working Families Tax Cut Act, or the One Big Beautiful Bill, that got rid of $500 billion of subsidies, energy subsidies, that do nothing but make energy more expensive and less reliable. And under this administration, we've spent massively less on energy, and we've delivered massively more on energy. And when you have more energy of lower prices.
It's a fantastic job. You and Doug. Doug said, you got to get this guy Doug. You got to get this guy Chris Wright and get him as soon as you can. I said, but I want you to run energy. He said, well, I'm good at it, but he's better, right? Didn't you tell me that? So I gave him the land, I gave you the energy, right? And it's a great combination. I mean, they literally have, I said, maybe we'll merge it in some way. They said, we don't have to. We get along. They work together, right, with the land. he's got the land and the energy. He's got the knowledge to take it out. It's been a good combination.
This administration, the whole administration, and your leadership has been very focused on energy, because we can push down energy prices, we can lower costs on Americans, and we can raise wages by bringing jobs and opportunities here. It is a transformation of American energy. Thanks for your leadership.
He's one of the most respected people in the energy world. And Doug told me about Chris Wright. They said, if you could get him, what he gave up to do this job, you make it a little less money, but that's all right. You don't care. What you're doing is fantastic. But he said he's the best in the world. Other people have told me that. The heads of the biggest companies have told me that. And it's really panning out to be so. We appreciate it very much. It's great. One of the things we're doing with energy, I think that's so important. We have an old grid, been around a long time, and not really, can't be much expanded. It can be fixed up a little bit, but can't be much expanded. And we have some plants that are so big that the grid would never be able to hold it. We're allowing them to build a electric producing plant, mostly electric, but they can use nuclear to do it, they can use oil and gas, they can use coal, they can use whatever they want. I think many are choosing oil and gas because it's there, it's tried, it's true, it's plentiful, it's inexpensive. Some are going nuclear, some are going both. Many are going all three. But the plants, you read, well, how do we ever fire those plants? Because to do this, we need 2 times the electricity we produce in 1 year for the entire country, which is almost hard to believe. These buildings are so big. They're going up now. So I did something that nobody thought was possible also. When they build their building, they build their own electric generating plants. And we are seeing some of the most incredible designs you've ever seen. So we don't need the grid. I read an article in the Wall Street Journal saying, oh, we're falling behind China. We're not actually. We're leading everybody because I'm letting them build. The government would never be able to do that. Now, China's a different kind. They build, they do things that you got to hand it to them. President Xi, they build vast amounts of energy. They don't have certain constraints that we have in this country, but we're more than topping them. We're leading China by a lot on AI, and it's primarily because I'm allowing them to build with their plant their own electricity. If they had to rely on the grid, they wouldn't have any power. You wouldn't have any power for anything. And they're building the electricity. And one of the reasons I'm able to do that is we have a very capable man in the room named Lee Zeldin. He may be in the room someplace. Is it his normal place? He's there. He's always there. Most reliable, solid guy. And he's done an amazing job. Could you just explain that? And also, because of the fact he's so good, California has a problem. The hardest permit to get when they lost 25,000 or so houses, which shouldn't have been lost, they should have allowed the water to come down from the Pacific Northwest, which was very plentiful. But they didn't do that. They lost 25,000 houses. Lee and his team gave them the most complicated permit within 20 days. Everybody, every single house that burned down got the federal approval. Unfortunately, it's well over a year. And the state and the city, that's Gavin Newsom, and the city, the mayor, who's grossly incompetent, by the way, they have been unable to give permits. There are like 3 houses being built out of thousands and thousands. They have no permits. So I read about a week ago that it's possible, because of what's happened, whether you declare national emergency or something, these people are they're dying to build their house. They want to do something, that I could put somebody in charge from the federal government. Congratulations, Lee. And I'm putting Lee Zeldin in charge of getting them their permits, city, federal. You have the federal, you need the city and state. And I hear you have great powers over them if we want, and we're going to give you that power. We've already given you that power. So Lee Zeldin is going to work with the thousands of people that are dying to build their house. And I also recommend one other thing. Give them the house plus a 10% bonus. In other words, you get a bonus, you can build your house 10% larger. They've suffered so greatly, they've waited so long, and they should be given a bonus. So I think, and I've heard this has been done before, they get a 10% bonus. They can build a house that's a little bit larger than what they had before. And I'd like to have you take it over.
Mr. President, your great Secretary of State was looking for another job.
I was thinking about him, but he's pretty well booked. I watched him. He did a great job yesterday, but He's a little booked up. Let's go, Lee. Talk. No more ideas like that, Lee.
When President Trump came into office, he immediately signed an executive order giving EPA 30 days to complete our Phase 1 hazardous material removal so that the Army Corps can come in and complete their Phase 2 debris removal. So at first, the response was that was going to be impossible. Good luck trying to get it done maybe by the summer. But we figured it out because operating at Trump speed, the president was just sworn in. We had to get it done, and we got it done in less than 30 days. The Army Corps then came in and completed the debris removal. So the federal government, while the governor has tried to accuse this president of not focusing with a laser on putting all of the weight of the federal government into getting this done, it happened from the moment he was sworn into office. SBA came in. I think it was about half of the disaster loan money, billions of dollars from last year went towards these residents and businesses. So the full weight of this government. But right after I was sworn in, which was actually a year ago today, my first trip was to East Palestine because the vice president never forgets his home state. The second trip was going to Los Angeles. There were people with contractors all over Palisades and Eaton ready to rebuild right then and there. You're talking about a year ago. And now the frustration, the passion that we all hear from all of these Los Angeles residents. And President Trump, he's made it clear to us that he's heard enough. And the message should be heard loud and clear to that local leadership. They should be motivated listening to this right now. And when this cabinet meeting is over, if it hasn't been done already, is that they need to go into the office where these permits are just laying around, flip over tables if you have to, fire people if you have to, and get all of these approvals done so that people can rebuild their lives. It's been a year, and this president has had enough.
So whatever you can do, that's going to be very important. And it's so sad, those people, we were there a few days after the fire, you were there with me, we were walking down the streets. The people are devastated. The love that they had for that property was, everybody was going to rebuild, and they thought they could do it immediately. They should have. We gave it to them so quickly, but they can't get their permits. They still can't build, and they're losing spirit too. I mean, a lot of people are losing spirit. And the other thing I'd like to talk to you about and other people about that happen to be sitting around the table. They want to build a low-income housing project right in the middle of everything in Palisades. And I'm not going to allow it to happen, okay? I mean, maybe it's politically correct, maybe it's not. I'm not going to let these people destroy the value of their houses. I built a lot of low-income housing. I made a lot of money building low-income housing. I know more about it than anybody. We're not going to allow this guy to build a low-income housing project on top of everything else in the middle of that mess that was created by the fact that they didn't allow water to come down from the Pacific Northwest, okay? And I'd like you to have that stopped, and stopped immediately. No financing, that might be you, Scott, because they'll come to you for financing. It's never going to be approved. You would never, but Scott thought it was a horrible thing. So there's going to be no financing for low-income housing. Let the people build their houses, and as fast as you can, help them, help the mayor and help the governor get their permitting done, okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. Kelly, I think you were just alluded to, are you helping some of the people out there with loans?
Yes, Mr. President, thanks to your leadership, you also helped put the fires out. Your executive order got water to the scene in your earliest days of your presidency. So you've been there from day one. We've been out there twice now. There have been no changes until your executive order this week that is allowing that permitting to happen quickly. We have 16,000 structures burned. We have put loans out on 12,000 of them for $3.2 billion. More than half of all the disaster money delivered in America went to that area. Now, because of the abject leadership, the failures of Gavin Newsom, they have not been able to rebuild. Because of your leadership, they're going to be able to rebuild. But that's not all you've done.
And they'll take the credit for it. Watch, it'll start, and they'll take the credit. Look at the great job we did. They would never. It wouldn't get built in 20 years, and it will be destroyed by building low-income housing next to luxury housing. History says that doesn't work too well. Go ahead.
We're going to make sure that doesn't happen, Mr. President.
Please.
But under your leadership, you've ended at least 8 wars, okay? But probably the most important and underreported war that this president ended was Joe Biden and the Democrats' war on Main Street and hardworking families. We've seen it as I've gone across the country this month, 10 different states, and we saw it when we were together in Iowa. Hardworking families, farmers, small businesses expressing gratitude, lined up to thank you. I was out with our great Vice President last week in Toledo, Ohio. They are thanking this administration for getting Main Street back. The Trump tax cuts, the tariffs, deregulation, it's all rocket fuel for hardworking families in Main Streets. And I see it whether it's talking about small business expensing, 100% accelerated for Made in America factories, the 20% pass-through, but it's also working families where they have expanded child tax credits, increased standard deductions, permanent low-income tax rates, health savings accounts, Trump accounts. This president is delivering for Main Street. It's the most underreported story in this country. And I see it in Main Street businesses. All-time small business confidence hit a record under this president last year after the Trump tax cuts. All-time small business formation now at 36 million small businesses, and a record $100 billion out from SBA because a record number of people want to invest in this country and hire. And whether I've talked to manufacturers about tariffs, they know that this president is bringing manufacturing back, just like Prince Manufacturing in Macon, Georgia. 500 employees machining parts for our defense, our agriculture, our automotive, our aerospace industry. They're going to hire 500 more people this year because of tariffs, because of the Trump tax cuts, and because of SBA lending. And I see this state after state as I've gone across the country, talked to hundreds of business owners, walked dozens of factory floors. This is not being covered, but it's going on in America. The number one problem is they need skilled workers. And this is something I'm working on with Secretary Chavez-DeRemer. I'm working across the administration to ensure that we empower our small businesses. 98% of our manufacturers meet the small business definition. So Ford has 5,000 small manufacturing suppliers. The $18 trillion you brought in is creating an economic boom like none we've ever seen before. We are going to have 7% GDP growth. GDP now is probably underestimating where it is in 4Q, but with interest rates going down, with regulation going down, these are all taxes on small businesses, and those are going away. And thanks to President Trump, your leadership, we are seeing Main Street boom. Hardworking families have $1,000 already in their pockets, and when they get their $1,000 refund tax, I hope they all remember that every Democrat voted against them getting their tax refunds, because this is what our administration is doing, is powering your incredible economic agenda forward on Main Street.
Thank you very much. Great job. I do want to say that on my left, I have a man who's doing a fantastic job, and on my right also, by the way. But we're spending a tremendous amount of time and effort on building our military. We largely rebuilt the military during my first term, fortunately, and we're greatly enhancing it now. We're going to be doing something new. We're bringing back the battleship, and I thought, like you remember the battleships for the great Iowa and Alabama, Missouri, those unbelievable scenes that you see, Victory at Sea. You'd see these incredible ships, and I thought they were powerful, but the battleships that we're building are going to be 100 times more powerful than those beautiful works of art. I mean, they were magnificent, all steel. We have the steel now, and we're going to be doing that as an enhancement. But our military is very strong. You may want to say something about the large fleet of ships that's heading over to the Middle East.
Well, Mr. President, you had to, like so many other cabinet members have referenced, rebuild the perception of America. And at the Department of War, that meant reestablishing deterrence. What happened in Afghanistan, what happened in Ukraine, a war that never would have occurred, what happened on October 7th in Israel, never would have happened under President Trump. So as a result, we're having to rebuild how our enemies perceive us. And when President Trump said, we're not getting a nuclear, Iran, you won't have a nuclear bomb, he meant it. And we sent those B-2s halfway around the world, and they never noticed. When he said, we're not going to tolerate trafficking drugs anymore in our hemisphere, we treat them like the Al-Qaeda of the Western Hemisphere, he meant it, and we're executing that. When you said, Mr. President, we're securing the border, the military was proud to do their part alongside Homeland Security to do that. Same thing with Iran right now, ensuring that they have all the options to make a deal. They should not pursue nuclear capabilities. So we will be prepared to deliver whatever this president expects of the War Department, just like we did this month. No other military in the world could have executed the most sophisticated, powerful raid not just in American history, I would say in world history. What those men did going downtown, another country, the most secure place in the most secure base in the middle of the night without anybody knowing until those simultaneous bombs dropped 3 minutes before the helicopters dropped. No other country could coordinate that. No other president would have been willing to empower those warriors that way to be that effective. And that sends a message to every capital around the world that when President Trump speaks, he means business, and we are reestablishing deterrence at the War Department, Mr. President.
Thank you. Great job you're doing. Just to finish up on that, the Somalian pirates over the years have pirated, stolen many ships. They would get large amounts of money for the ship. You know, you have $1 billion ship, and the insurance companies didn't want to fight because, you know, some of those ships are very flammable. They're carrying millions of barrels of oil. Very flammable, very dangerous situation if they're shot at. So they wouldn't fight. We notified them a number of months ago. Anybody that does that gets the same treatment as a drug dealer sending their drugs in from Venezuela or anybody else. As you know, it's 97% down by water. So the drugs coming in by sea or by water is down 97%. Now we're also starting, that was the more difficult route. Now we're starting to do that by land also. It will be, you'll see that happen as they come in and kill our people with drugs. I think the real number is 300,000 people a year, not 100, but whatever it is, it's a lot of people, hundreds of thousands of people. They're going to get hit. But also we added to the list the Somalian pirates that go out on a boat, similar type boat, actually not quite as fast, not quite as nice as you can imagine, but they get the same missile that we give to the people that are bringing drugs. And so far, we haven't seen anybody going out. So the traffic is not being interfered with by people pirating our ships. Not our ships, ships all over the world. I said, make it for any country. We're doing the rest of the world a favor. It's a very effective favor, but we see very little pirating nowadays. You used to have ships being taken every single, like 2 or 3 a week, these massive ships that be brought in to some place in Somalia, which I don't even know is it a country. We have Ilhan Omar left, and then she gives us lectures on the Constitution of the United States. These people are, what they've done to rip off our country is terrible, but the pirating has essentially stopped. They know that if anybody even makes a move toward a ship, they get the ultimate treatment. They will go to wherever they want to go, but it's probably not going to be to heaven. I can't imagine, but they get hit very hard, just like a drug dealer, just like the boats, the ships that are coming in. Every boat that comes in with drugs on it that we take out, we just save 25,000 American lives. Each boat is the equivalent of saving 25,000 mostly American, but American lives. So I just wanted to let you know that, and Pete's been totally authorized to do that. And they know it's going to happen, and it seems that all of that brisk business that they had has been stopped in its right in its foot. So I just want to thank everybody for being here. My cabinet has been amazing. I like this much better than going around for 3 hours. We'll pick on other ones. Pam, you're doing great. We're all doing great. JD, if you'd like to say something, you can. Would you like to really quickly? He is, after all, the Vice President of the United States.
It's okay, sir. I'm here for the free coffee. I just say it's an honor to serve with this group, and we're doing a lot of good for the American people. We're very proud of it.
Yeah, we're very proud of the country. We're very proud of you. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you. Thank you.
So very interesting that question's not taken today, but a busy one. President Trump wanted that to be on the shorter side. The last cabinet meeting going 3 hours, as it's now 1 o'clock on the East Coast, 10 a.m. on the West Coast. Get all your America First updates and exclusive offers right here at Right Side Broadcasting Network, rsbnetwork.com/newsletter. There you can like, share, and subscribe on all of the big topics of the day. And this focus, truly affordability, also energy, and speaking with highlighting some cabinet members from Kelly Loeffler to Robert F. Kennedy Jr., also Doug Burgum and Chris Wright, to Howard Lutnick, who always gets a chuckle in or two, as President Trump said at the beginning of the meeting. Maybe I should have said that line, because you got a clap from everyone in the room. So we will continue to stay on everything going on inside and outside of the Beltway. If you'd like to write in, if you wish to opine, feedback at rsbn.tv. In addition to that, let not your heart be troubled, 3:30 Eastern today. Matthew Alvarez in for continued and extended coverage, with President Trump giving a statement later today. And then also this evening is the premiere of Melania. We hope you have tickets for that. Coming out tomorrow nationwide, but the Trump Kennedy Center, there will be some star-studded event for that as well. So we will see you later today. Again, all America First updates and exclusive offers right there at Right Side Broadcasting Network. Visit rsbnetwork.com/newsletter. You have a wonderful Thursday. Always a pleasure to be with you. For all of my colleagues here on the right side of history, God be with you. I'm Robert McNeely, and we will see you very soon.
Welcome to Right Side Broadcasting Network, your trusted conservative news outlet. At RSBN, we deliver the truth when the mainstream media falls short. Since 2015, we've proudly broadcasted every single one of President Trump's iconic MAGA rallies, bringing you the excitement and energy live before anyone else. By watching RSBN, you get an unfiltered front row view of the action on the ground. We interview the crowds to give a voice to millions of Americans just like you. We show you President Trump's speeches in their entirety, free from interruptions and censorship. We cover the stories that matter to you with the integrity and passion you deserve. Thank you for choosing RSBN as your home for America First News. Together, we stand strong, united, and informed. So join us and be part of the right side of history.
Hey y'all, it's Silk from Diamond and Silk Chit Chat Live. Look, don't forget to watch my show right here at Right Side Broadcasting Network, and I want you to support Right Side Broadcasting Network. It's imperative that you do so, okay? Bye-bye.
allfamilypharmacy.com/RSBN. You can scan that QR code now, RSBN10. That is the code, easy to remember, for 10% off. This is ivermectin, hydrochloroquine, antibiotics that will save you and yours from bacterial and viral infections, NAD+, and much, much more. 200 essential medications and emergency medical kits, the meds you trust delivered to your door.